Speaking at a rally earlier this year, Trump said if he failed to win the election in November, it would lead to a bloodbath for the country. At the time, his campaign denied he was talking about violence erupting around the US. Biden says he's taking the former president seriously, suggesting Trump could, once again, claim there'd been a stolen election. Biden shared his fears for the months ahead as his vice president, Kamala Harris, now the Democrats' official candidate, and her running mate, Tim Walz, embark on a tour of the country to kickstart their campaign for the White House.
Recapping the top story, the Home Affairs Department says it has reasons to believe the person recorded in its records as Chidima Adechena's mother may have committed fraud and identity theft. The department's Minister Leon Schreiber has provided an update on the ongoing investigation into the citizenship of Adechena, a contestant in the upcoming Miss South Africa pageant. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm sports headlines, Olympic action saw Wade van Niekerk and Sean Maswanganyi out of the 200-meter semi-finals. And in cricket test action, rain holds the Proteas at 45 for 1 on day 1 against the West Indies. Details at around 6:30.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. The N12 West onto the M1 North remaining closed at Deepcliff. That's after yesterday's tanker crash and spillage. So you can't come from sort of Southgate, Oakdean side and turn up towards Soweto. You can go through the interchange and turn south towards Devlin and Eldos, but not up towards sort of Rancho Road and the Soweto area. Crash on the R24 just after the Edenvale exit. If you're on your way to the airport, most of the lanes at that scene are currently closed off. So make sure you've got plenty of time to get through that. It's quite a heavy queue once you get through Galulis and split onto that airport highway, the collision scene not so far up the road. Protesting at Islington this morning, blocking again the N2. That's a problem for through traffic between Port Shepstone and Harding. And Cape Town, just a note, Sir Larry's Pass is open. Situation normal in Grabo, and the flow on the N2 highway normal through that region. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Getting ahead of the morning with #SAfm Breakfast.
Hello, 7 minutes past 6. You're with SAfm Breakfast. Today I'm John Gericke. Good to be along with you. It's Thursday, public holiday tomorrow. It's a busy show, so let me tell you what you're looking forward to today. We're going to start this morning with what's happening in the UK. Thousands of riot police stood ready to deal with more potential outbreaks of violence. There were protests and counter-protests, riots. What's the difference between a riot and a protest? We will get an update on what's happening in the UK in this half hour. Then you remember earlier this week we had a conversation with the Department of Education about the quality of food being given at Gauteng schools. Well, the DA have inspected several schools in the province, and they have found that schools aren't receiving food deliveries, and where deliveries were made, that food was of poor quality. So we'll get an update from the DA Shadow MEC for Education and get a rebuttal from that original conversation we had with the Department of Education. Remember, I asked the MEC then to say that would anybody complain that there was no food and the food was of good quality? He said, no, everything is fine. So we'll get an update. We will talk a little bit more about that Mpumalanga military camp disguised as a security training facility. Now we found out that it was being done illegally and there were unaccredited instructors using military ranks, and the training was a little bit more and more intense than normal military training. So we'll find out from a TAPSOSA spokesperson about what needs to be done to make sure that military or these training camps, be they guards or military or whatever, are more regularized and people check up on that information and make sure that the security is fine. Then also unions, South African pastor has, we'll get an update on that pastor who stormed the school, and wonder and talk a little bit more about the implications behind that. And we'll talk to the Executive Director of the National Professional Teachers Organisation of South Africa. We will also find out more about that Miss South Africa story. You heard Elvis talking about that. We will talk to an immigration attorney. I guess the bottom line is, what is a South African and where do you fall within that? Then There are plenty more to talk about. What about technology in the NHI? Remember, we had a conversation about the doctors that weren't going to be forced, the certificate of need that has been shot down. Well, now there's technology that we can use virtual doctors to be able to make sure that no matter where you are in the country, you do get good medical support and medical help. And then there's a first time in Africa that it's happening. There's going to be microbes and the interaction. Microbes, fungus, all those kind of things. There's a prestigious meeting being held for the first time on the African continent. We're going to find out just how important microbes are in global warming in South Africa. And we're going to finish off with tourism in South Africa. Massive amounts of money, billions of rand coming into South Africa every single year because of tourism. Not just international tourism, but local tourism as well. We're going to talk to the SA Tourism CEO. It's a busy show today. Good morning to you. It's 6:10.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
The Olympic medalist, Tatiana Smith, representing South Africa.
Tears of joy will certainly flow for Tatiana Smith.
Smith, silver.
I think this one is much different than any of my races. I'm so fortunate to get a medal.
For the love of the game.
It's Truck Month at Ford, and that means one thing. You save big when you upgrade to a 4x4. For a limited time only, get a Ford Ranger 4x4 from only $8,599 per month. Visit your nearest Ford dealer to get the best deal on a Ranger 4x4 from only $8,599 per month with free 4x4 driver training. TNCs apply.
Witness the global battle of great athletes from South Africa and from all over the world in the Olympic Games Paris 2024. From the heart-pounding races on the track to the graceful routines on the gymnastics floor, each event promises to deliver moments of sheer brilliance and sporting excellence. Live the intense rivalries, inspiring comebacks, and record-breaking performances right here across all SABC TV channels, SABC radio stations, on the move with SABC Plus, or online on sabcsport.com. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. The Olympic Games Paris 2024. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Daily News Diary on SAfm.
And Musa, good morning. How's things?
All good, John. How are you doing?
Excellent. Ready for my public holiday, long weekend.
So am I.
Somebody's got to do it, hey?
So am I.
What's happening on this busy Thursday?
Well, a reaction following the Department of Home Affairs stating that it has found prima facie evidence that the woman registered as the mother of the Miss South Africa contestant Chidema Adechena may have committed identity fraud. And in providing an update, the department said an innocent South African mother whose identity may have been stolen as part of the alleged fraud committed by her mother suffered as a result of she could not register her child, and the department has broadened its investigation to identify and pursue any officials that's involved in the alleged fraudulent scheme, and is also obtaining legal advice that's on the implications of the alleged fraudulent activity on Adechena's citizenship status, and there are ongoing engagements with all stakeholders. Action SA leader Herman Mashaba will conduct an oversight visit, and it is to assess the impact of illegal immigration in Temba in Hammanskraal. The ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula will be briefing the media on the outcomes of the recently concluded NEC and Lekgotla meetings, and we know that this gathering was called to reflect on the election outcomes and formulate a plan of action for next year. The spotlight once again on the importance of road safety for scholar transport, and the Carltonville community will be holding a mass funeral for the 11 learners and their driver who lost their lives in a scholar transport accident on the 10th of last month, and it follows the memorial service held yesterday for the 6 learners who died during a crash involving a bus and a train in Middelburg, and they will be laid to rest on Saturday. In court, the case against the 5 men accused of the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Tebelo Tibbs Mutswane resumes in the Durban Magistrates Court, and the accused were denied bail in May. In Kailicha, the 5 suspects that were arrested on the Cape Flats, that's following a shootout with police, they are expected to appear in the local magistrates court this morning, and they are facing numerous charges, including the alleged illegal possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition, the 8 alleged cash-in-transit robbers were shot dead when they opened fire on police in Town 2 on Monday. So 8 died and 5 were arrested. And a new state witness is expected to testify in the trial that's against the multi-murder accused Enoch Ndo at the Tohoyandou High Court. And Ndo is accused of killing 7 family members, including 4 children, and that incident happened in 2021 on Christmas Day. Just some of the stories that we will be looking into.
Busy day for Anne Musa, watching all of the news. That's what you can expect through the day here on SAfm. Headlines coming up in 15 minutes. Full bulletins, top of the hour.
John Gericka on SAfm.
Plenty weather to get through today. First of all, a yellow level warning 2 of disruptive rain leading to localized flooding of roads and susceptible settlements expected over the southwestern parts of the Western Cape. Also, yellow level warning 2 of damaging wind and waves leading to difficulty in navigation at sea expected between Lambert's Bay and Cape Agulhas. Yellow level 1 warning of damaging interior winds leading to longer travel times as well as localized problem for high-sided vehicles expected over the Namakwa District municipality of the Northern Cape and in places of the Western Cape, excluding the northern parts of the West Coast District. And level warning 2, a yellow level 2 warning of damaging winds leading to localized difficult driving conditions, felt fire conditions, and damage to informal structures expected over the southern and eastern parts of the Northern Cape, the western parts of the Northwest, and the southern parts of the Free State. There's also a fire danger warning expected over the central parts of the country. Some advisories as well. A heat wave, persistently high temperatures expected over the Umzimvubu, Ntabakulu and Mbizana local municipalities of the Eastern Cape until Friday. Very cold, wet and windy conditions with daytime temperatures of 10 degrees Celsius and below expected in places of the interior of the Namakwa District municipality of the Northern Cape and the western high-lying areas of the Western Cape on Friday. Pretoria, Johannesburg and Vereeniging today going to be fine. 7 to 26 in the capital. Joburg 5 to 25. Vereeniging 4 to 26. Mbombela, Polokwane will be fine. Mbombela and Polokwane fine. Mbombela 9 to 27. Polokwane 7 to 26. Mahikeng will be fine and windy 11 to 28. Vryburg fine and windy 7 to 28. Bloemfontein fine and windy 3 to 26. Kimberley and Upington fine and windy. Kimberley 10 to 28. Upington 5 to 25. Cape Town will be cloudy with rain tonight. A moderate to fresh northwester becoming a strong to near gale force wind from late afternoon 12 to 15. George is partly cloudy in the morning, otherwise fine, light and variable wind 7 to 19. Gqeberha is fine, light to moderate southwesterly wind 7 to 20. East London fine, a light southwesterly wind 10 to 22. Durban is fine, it'll be a light northwester this morning, otherwise moderate to fresh northeasterly 13 to 28. Richards Bay is fine, moderate to fresh northeasterly to northeasterly 15 to 30. And Pietermaritzburg is fine from 5 to a high of 31 degrees.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
Alan Hatherley of South Africa, as he steps up to receive the bronze medal at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. He is the first South African medal in cycling since 1912. Rudolph Lewis won the individual time trial. Congratulations, Alan Hatherley. Your country is proud of you.
For the love of the game.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Babina Noko returns to the battlefield with a great strategy to display a melody of victory. But the citizens are shaking their heads. Eric Tinkler's boys are confident that they will land successfully in the last 4. This is the MTN 8 quarter-final. Wafa Wafa. Catch Sekhukhune United FC and Cape Town City FC on Saturday, 10 August at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
Get an update on what's happening in the UK over the past week. Riots have erupted across parts of England and Northern Ireland. Over 400 arrests already. It began after a stabbing in Southport that killed 3 children, led to widespread unrest fueled by false rumours about the suspect. Let's get an update with Tembisa Fakude, who's the Senior Research Fellow and Director at AfriCID, the Africa-Asia Dialogue. Tembisa, good morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us. Riots, protests, counter-protests, what's the latest?
Well, they're still planning more protests. Yesterday, it was expected that it's going to be widespread, but nothing as major as expected. Happened yesterday. But it seems as if this is likely to continue, as Elon Musk is also adding fuel to the fire, basically encouraging these to go. Well, notwithstanding, by the way, that he himself is also an immigrant in the United States. But these are, the bigotry has gone to a different level in the UK, and at the moment is targeting Muslims, unfortunately, and other people who do not look like a normal, common Brit.
How are the governments reacting to this?
We've been hearing from Prime Minister Stemmer that they were going to arrest those that are involved. Arrest those that are involved, and more arrests are expected. But we've seen a strong, tough rhetoric from the government, warning those that intend continuing with this, that the law was going to take its course. And as it has happened to some of them already, many of them are expected to be arrested.
It comes from this misinformation or disinformation, whichever word you want to use. False rumors, really, were circulating online. There was that little gap between the arrest of the 17-year-old and then release of his name officially. Would you say that was the trigger of this? But it's, as you say, become much more now.
It was a trigger, but there are a lot of it's a problem that's been simmering. So you had the disinformation. Now we are in a post-disinformation phase. We're in a phase of misinformation. In other words, the disinformation has become a reality to many people, and it's going to be very difficult to change their minds, like those who believe that Trump won the election. So it's exactly the same thing now. It's a perpetuation of misinformation, and continues. So there are people already believing now that actually a Muslim figure of foreign origin came and killed those 3 girls, notwithstanding that we know now that it wasn't a foreigner. This person was born and bred in the United Kingdom who committed this heinous crime. But the horse has bolted, and now you have these uncontrolled riots and protests.
It's as you say, it's become more though. Is it still about that one incident, or is it now just people who are anti, as you say, people of color or Muslims in particular?
Now it's more than. What triggered it is that those events, but a lot of people who have been upset and angry with what's been going on, particularly the rise in social standing of foreigners or not foreigners or people who of immigrant or other descent coming to the United Kingdom and making it. And these are people who are feeling that they are not given opportunities, as is the case, by the way, in many countries. But there's another theory I've been thinking about yesterday, and for me it stems from what happened to post Barack Obama's presidency in the United States. We see what's happening now with post Rishi Sunak premiership in the UK, and this seems to be, by the way, spreading. Whenever there's a person of color who rule the country, as soon as he leaves or she leaves office, you start having people embracing these radical politics. And of course, it's not yet confirmed because I haven't done much research on it. But I see a lot of similarities to what happened in the United States. United States radicalized, particularly the right radicalized in the United States after the Obama presidency. And I think that's what you're seeing happening at the moment in the United Kingdom.
These are young people. These are not the right-wing protesters of the 70s and 80s. It's almost a new generation.
Yeah, and it's not only in the UK and the US, by the way. You see it happening in Hungary. You're seeing this happening in Israel. These are young people who are getting radicalized. And in France, not long ago, the elections also indicated that young people were getting radicalized. So it's a very, very a worrying situation that while the world is moving towards liberal politicking, you having these young people in these countries, very important countries in world politics, embracing right-wing politics.
You mentioned Elon Musk at the top. What role are the social media having on the crisis in the UK?
Oh yeah, social media is playing a very, very important role. But at the same time, I don't think we should criticize and blame social media for people's feelings and hatred and bigotry. Social media is a very good instrument that has been used or it continues to be used for very, very constructive reasons. But this time around, of course, it's a conduit that is further perpetrating this hatred and misinformation. And as I've said, many people are now living in this misinformation bubble. So for them, the current rhetoric or the reasoning that was given is now the truth. And they will continue doing what they do because they're not going to listen to anyone else now. They believe that, the person who killed those 3 young girls was an immigrant who was waiting for political asylum in the United Kingdom.
There was even talk about shutting down social media in certain situations in the UK. Or was that just talk?
Just talk, but it would be bad news, and I don't think the government in the UK will do that. Bad precedents. We have to deal with what's happening, but it doesn't mean that we have to shut down means of communication, because again, that can set a very, very wrong precedence. If UK start doing that, it will give other countries who've got other ulterior motives to do the same. I strongly believe that we should stay away from that kind of rhetorical intentions of shutting down modes of communication, but let's deal with the real problem. The real problem is bigotry. The real problem are these criminals who are going around killing and burning property.
I see anti-racism protests. According to one report, the anti-racism protests are now outnumbering the far right. So that forms part of the conflict as well, isn't there? There's a far right protest, and then at the same time, the anti-far right, for lack of a better word, are protesting, and that causes tensions.
Yeah, and the numbers are totally stark. The two huge difference between these numbers of the anti-racism protesters, who happens to be thousands and thousands of Brits, and these right-wing protesters, they are violent, they're loud, but they're not as many. I mean, many of them they're scattered around different places, and because they've got or they use violence as a weapon, their actions are much more amplified. But it's good that we're seeing more and more people anti-racism, anti-right-wing protests coming up different places in the UK, and I think this coming weekend we are likely to see more and more. But again, these right-wing protests are also meant to counter what's been happening in terms of protests against the crimes that are currently committed in Israel. Strangely enough, for the first time, of course, in history, you have the pro-Nazi organization agreeing with the Jews right wing, that is in Israel, and both of them you see perpetuating the same kind of agenda.
Do the British police have the manpower to be able to manage this? It's been going on for a week. The Prime Minister's condemned the violence, and there's a standing army of specialised police officers. Are they there? Are they on the ground?
It looks like it. They've managed to squash quite a number of these protests that were planned at least yesterday and the day before. So we're seeing more and more communities that were impacted and affected by this beginning to rebuild and fix their homes. Mosques are now kind of protected in various places where they were in danger. So it looks as if they're doing something about it. And again, this is not the typical British culture or behavior. So there's a lot of condemnation coming from various quarters in Britain. And as a result, the media is also playing a very important role in terms of condemning this and exposing the people that are involved in this. And I don't think the British would like to be known as a bigotry place or country that promotes and encourage racism.
And Tabisa, how are immigrants dealing with all of this?
It's very difficult, especially in a country like Britain, where everything is free, and this is happening for the first time. So it's quite tough for them to deal with this, and I'm not quite sure how the politics is going to be post these riots when the dust settles.
Dembisa Fakude, thank you very much. Senior Research Fellow and Director at the Africa-Asia Dialogue, giving us an update on what's happening in the UK. What do you make of that? Give us a call. 086 000 2032. Coming up in a minute, we'll get an update on the business with Ntao Lane. We got sport with Zai and traffic with Rob. Then we'll get an update on this quality of food in Gauteng schools. We had this conversation earlier on this week, but the DA are saying that they inspected several schools in the province and found that some schools weren't receiving food deliveries, and those that were, the food was of poor quality. And we're also going to find out more with the Director of Training and Communications at the Private Security Industry Regulating Authority. They say that security service near White River, where those Libyans were being found to be conducting military training, had been served with a notice of suspension. What sort of legal implications are there? All of that and more coming up after the news headlines at 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the 11 learners who died in a car crash in Carltonville, west of Johannesburg, will be buried this morning. A combined funeral service for the learners will take place at the Fochville Secondary School, less than 10 kilometers away from where they died in a crash involving scholar transport last month. The Home Affairs Department says it has reasons to believe the person recorded in its records as Chidima Adechena's mother may have committed fraud and identity theft. The department's Minister Leon Schreiber has provided an update on the ongoing investigation into the citizenship of Adechena, a contestant in the upcoming Miss SA pageant. And the Mkhonto Wesizwe Party and the SABC are expected to face off in the High Court in Johannesburg next week. The party has taken the SABC to court over the use of the term Government of National Unity. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy traffic out towards the airport at Joburg if you're heading for early morning flight connections or just flight connections at OR Tambo. This collision blocking multiple lanes. Most of the lanes are blocked on the R24, the Albertina Sisulu Highway, just past the Edenvale exit. It's pushing traffic heavily right back onto the N12. The option would be, if you're sort of approaching Galilees and too late to divert, is get through the interchange. Let's take the N12 out to Boksburg and the R21 North up through Jet Park. That route is clear. N12 East, R21 North, and you'll just bypass a really big delay on the R24. N12 West from Southgate onto the N1 for a turn north through Deepcliff interchange remains closed. That's following yesterday's tanker crash and spillage, which is still being attended to this morning. And there's just been a crash on the M1 South, bottom of Midrand at Buccleuch interchange. That traffic starting to backlog back towards Allendale Road. There's also a crash coming out of Pretoria again this morning on the M1 South at the R21. Southern parts of KZN, the N2 blocked at Isihlweni with protesting. Leaving Durban, a crash on the N3 West at Spaghetti Junction. That traffic starting to backlog. And Cape Town looks like being a busy morning if the N2 is any guide. There is traffic all the way through this morning from Muway at Kailicha right through to about Mowbray Main Road. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
A very good morning to you. Yes, definitely a mixed day for Team South Africa. We'll go straight to the likes of South African sprinters Wade van Niekerk and Sean Maswanganyi, eliminated from the men's 200-meter semi-finals at the Paris Olympics last night. Van Niekerk, who opted out of his favoured 400-meter event, finished last with a time of 20.72 seconds. Now, despite a valiant effort, Maswanganyi placed fourth in his semi-final heat with a time of 20.42 seconds, missing out on a spot in the final. Now, their eliminations marks a challenging day for Team SA sprint campaign in Paris. Meanwhile, South Africa's Joanne van Dijk impressed, and that's in the women's javelin event, throwing a personal best of 64.22 meters. Now, this performance topped Group A, securing her place in the final. Brian Raats of South Africa has advanced to the men's high jump final. He cleared 2.24 meters on his first attempt, and that's definitely a spot in the final that he's earned, while Edmund du Plessis has successfully qualified for the men's 800-meter semi-final semi-final. Du Plessis finished second in his heat. And Olympic golf action, South Africa's Ashley Buhai has surged into early medal contention, shooting an impressive 4 under par 68 in the first round of the women's golf tournament at Le Golf National. Buhai's round included 5 birdies and 1 bogey, placing her second just 3 shots behind the local favourite Céline Bautier of France, who leads with the 65. Meanwhile, fellow South African Paula Reto struggled, finishing with a 6 over par 78. Now, the competition will continue today as Buhai aims to look for a strong start to the day and hopefully an Olympic medal. Cricket action. The Proteas returned to Test cricket, marred by rain yesterday as they reached 45 for 1 on the first day of the series opener against the West Indies at Queen's Park Oval, Trinidad. Only 15 overs were possible before steady rain forced the abandonment of play. Aiden Markram was the only wicket to fall, bowled by Jason Holder for 9 runs. Tony de Zorzi remains unbeaten on 32 with 2 sixes and 2 fours. This marks South Africa's first test since their defeat in New Zealand 5 months ago. Play is set to resume today, weather permitting, with hopes of clearer skies. Soccer news, Richards Bay. They became the second club to change coach on the eve of the new Premier Soccer League season when they announced Brandon Truter as their new coach. He signed a contract for the season with a renewal clause. He previously worked at the club while they were still in the National First Division. He now replaces Vusi Vilakazi. Richards Bay are the second club to make a coaching change in the last weeks, with Maruma Galants appointing Dan Malasela in place of Dylan Kerr. And that's where we leave you sport for now. We'll have more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The business update on SAfm.
Good morning to Ntaoleng Lachela. Good morning to you, Ntaoleng. Good to speak to you again. Glencore is your top story today. They're holding on to their coal.
That's right. John, morning to you and everyone listening. Last year, the miner announced plans to spin off its coal assets. The matter has been contested over the past few months, and now there's a verdict. More than 90% of Glencore's shareholders voted against the company's proposal to separate its coal and steel businesses. Instead, they want Glencore to use the profits from its coal sales to fund its transition to cleaner energy and return any extra cash to them. In essence, shareholders are saying, use the coal money to go green and give us the rest. And it's very interesting a view considering the kind of changes we're seeing miners implementing ahead of that 2030 Paris Agreement. Now, zooming in on the miners' half-year numbers, coal mining contributed almost a third of the group's core earnings, generating $1.8 billion. Now, Glencore is working on gradually reducing its involvement in thermal coal, a type of dirty coal, as part of its plan to transition to cleaner energy sources. This means that the company's connection to coal will be phased out over time, regardless of the current proposal.
And Impala Platinum's struggling a little bit.
Implats has been hit by a double whammy, John, including lower metal prices resulting in a hefty impairment charge and a once-off BEE charge. Now, the impairment charge of 20 billion rand is more than a quarter of the group's market cap of 75 billion rand. The mining house said that the 20 billion rand charge, coupled with a one-off charge of 1.9 billion, led to a tumble in profits. It expects its headline earnings to plunge by as much as 90%. The BEE charge forms part of a merger approval condition set in place for Implats' acquisition of Royal Bafokeng Platinum last year. Now, the merger saw it deliver improved PGM output, reporting a 13% rise in production. This, however, was just an update from the company, and we'll get further insight on those numbers towards the end of the month.
And what's happening in the markets today?
Now, that relief rally that hit markets on Tuesday seems to be running out of steam, with U.S. stocks closing in the red yesterday. The Nasdaq, the big loser on that front, falling 1% as tech shares declined, and weak demand in a 10-year Treasury auction revived investor jitters in choppy trade. Moving over to Asia, those stocks trading mixed after Wall Street declined overnight. Traders in Asia are also assessing trade data from Japan. Coming back home, the local markets find finally catching up and ending the day in the green yesterday. The all share was up 1.18%, boosted by industrials, which gained 1.8%. In the currency scene, the rand making slight gains, trading at 18.34 to the dollar from about 18.37 yesterday.
Darling Lachella, thank you very much. More business coming up in an hour's time.
TV licenses have developed a new GIS-linked national address database to ensure that we can communicate with all our valued license holders. We now have a visual of all licensed and unlicensed households nationwide in order to effectively communicate with you. We remind you to take note of our payment reminders and avoid paying penalties due to non-compliance or choosing to ignore your legal obligation to pay your license fees. We can communicate with all our license holders through cost-effective electronic methods, enabling us to collect license fees and continue to support the national broadcaster, the SABC, in accordance with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act No. 4 of 1999 as amended. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
South Africa 26, Australia 19. The bronze medal for South Africa from Paris 2024.
Olympic medal is very, very special, and sometimes you only realize it a year or two afterwards. I'm really grateful for our players that they could call themselves Olympic medalists.
For the love of the game.
Are you shopping around for the best car insurance deal in the market? 46-year-old Zanele got a great deal on her car insurance when she called Outsurance. She now pays only 1,313 Rand to insure her white 2023 Audi Q2 1.4T FSI S-Line Stronic. Get an Outsurance quote and see if you could save. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAfm Breakfast, bringing you the freshest start to your day.
19 minutes to 7 with SAfm. Let's take some voice notes on 086 000. Voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good morning. Bishop Makwana from Leboa Home Zone F. Look, on the issue of the young girl, I think it is us South Africans who are selling our country to the dark. Because it can't be that the woman has fraudulently registered herself as a South African, or at least is a foreigner. It can't be. We shouldn't allow such things to happen. That is why we are proliferated with foreigners. We are crowded by foreigners who are illegal. We have more fraud and more white-collar crime in this country than any other country in this continent. So I think that the law must take its course. And all those that have committed these atrocious acts, they must be arrested, captured, and be prosecuted. And the girl, she must now know that she's not a South African, so we must not worry much about her.
We're going to be talking to an expert, an immigration attorney, later on in the program. Ashraf Isop will explain to us what makes South African citizenship. How can it be obtained?
Hey, John, and all SAfm listeners. Good morning. Chidima is a victim here, and I strongly believe that she must be withdrawn with immediate effect, given the information provided by Home Affairs Minister that her mother might have tampered with the requirements, to qualify her daughter to become a lawful citizen of the country. Well, this is just a can of worms that has been opened by the minister. This is Andile from Stegspruit, from the Eastern Cape, near the borders.
Let's go to Melbarton. David, you're there. What do you want to say about the UK riots?
Hi, I wouldn't like to call them riots. I'd like to call them protests, if I may.
Sure.
And I'd like to offer a bit of wider context about it, and in fact linked to the voice notes and the discussion about borders and foreigners as well. The situation is a global one. It's not just one that's limited to the UK, and if one looks at it as UK problem or situation alone, then you're actually missing the point. What the media is attempting to brand right-wing, in many cases, is just normal Britons saying, like many others in Europe have, like people in America are, and like people here in South Africa are saying, excuse me, you can't bring foreigners over in these numbers, uncontrolled, into our country, dilute our culture, change the nature of what's going on here. We can't get National Health Service anymore. We can't get an appointment for 6 months when our child needs a tooth repaired. It's the same thing that Poppy Ramagope was complaining about in Limpopo, with them being overrun by Zimbabweans, and that actually disadvantaging South Africans' level of access to our equivalent of the National Health Service.
Right.
And you'll see that in numerous countries across Europe, people are beginning to say, particularly the uncontrolled migration is being very deleterious to their quality of life. And it's not in fact, one of the more serious impacts is on housing, because they can't access housing anymore, because all the new housing that's being made available is being made available to so-called asylum seekers who are in fact just economic migrants. And it's a very similar problem to what we're suffering, what people are complaining about here in South Africa.
David in Melbourne, thank you very much. Worldwide problem, he says. Let us know what you think. 086 000 2032.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAfm.
Earlier this week, we spoke about the quality of food in Gauteng schools as part of the feeding scheme. Well, the DA say they inspected several schools in the provinces and found that some schools weren't receiving food deliveries. Deliveries that were made were of poor quality. Let's talk to the DA Shadow MEC for Education, Sergio Dos Santos. Shadow MEC, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. What did you find at the schools?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so we visited a couple of schools in Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni, and we want to continue with our visits to the other regions in Gauteng. But what we have found is quite concerning. So several schools are complaining that the current suppliers on supplying vegetables timelessly. So they generally get deliveries of vegetables every Monday. Sometimes they get it on Tuesday, sometimes they get it on a Friday, sometimes they don't get it at all. There was a particular school that did not receive any supplies for 3 weeks and then received the bulk within the one Friday. There's also complaints about the quality of vegetables, many times that it is rotten. Also, some schools complains that a bag of butternut or onions are actually half full, and that has been supplied. A number of schools have complaints that since the beginning of the term, they haven't received their stocks of chicken livers. It's been replaced with tin fish. But yeah, then there's also complaints regarding the sump, the pup, and the beans, that the quality isn't good. So it takes almost double the time to actually prepare it and cook it properly for the learners. So there's a lot of delays. There's a lot of unhappiness with the current suppliers. Also, one school said, we actually don't know who the supplier is. We don't have a contact detail. We Google, we can't find their details. When we actually do get hold of someone, they refer us to someone else. That person refers to someone else. Another school said their supplier, when they contacted the person on the order delivery, they then say it's not our fault. Please contact the department. The department will contact the supplier. So it's a bit of a chaotic situation at the moment.
The department, when we spoke to them, said they hadn't received official complaints. That they would solve the problem if there were complaints. They haven't got it. They're not relying on hearsay.
Well, I actually saw that yesterday, and I find it quite amusing because according to the schools that I have visited, they have large complaints with the district officers. So the department should be well aware of these complaints. Now, if you're talking about one or two schools, you may say that the department itself may not be aware of it. But when we're talking about several schools, and we visited 11 schools thus far, they all have the exact same complaints. There was only one school in Katlehong that said that they were relatively happy. There were some initial incidences. There wasn't a supply, as mentioned earlier, about 3 weeks. But then they got all their supplies. There was another school in Katlehong as well that when they received their stock, there was a number of vegetables and fruits that were actually rotten, and that was resolved within a day or two. But in general, the complaints have been quite extensive. And when we're talking about almost a term that is almost being completed, not receiving chicken livers and going a few weeks without receiving the stocks of porridge, as an example, is quite concerning.
What now, Sergio Dos Santos? You found this information. What can be done?
So currently there is a court case with regards to a previous supplier, THC Holdings. So they are approaching the court asking for a review of the tender process. It is alleged, excuse me, it is alleged that the department has acknowledged that the procurement process was not followed correctly. So what we have done is also submitted questions through to the MEC and the department to give clarity on the process, who are the 47 suppliers, what criteria was used to appoint these suppliers, and what will be done to ensure the quality and the timely delivery of all the food to the schools.
In the meantime, what do the kids do?
Well, look, unfortunately, many of the schools have to buy their own food items. So again, one of the schools in Katlehong, they didn't have any food, so they had to go to the local spa, and buy some food items and cook it for the learners. So the schools, I must admit, they're doing their utmost to do as much as possible to provide nutrition for the learners. There's an ECD that we visited in Motlakeng in the west of Gauteng. They had only received vegetables, so they're making soups every single day for the learners. So the schools must be commended for doing their utmost to provide nutrition for the learners.
Sergio Dos Santos is the DA Shadow MEC for Education in Gauteng.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just a reminder, no change overnight as we come into the morning on the N12 Southern Bypass at Deepcliff Interchange. The road was closed yesterday. That's the N12 West ramp onto the M1 North return from Southgate, if you like, up towards Soweto. That ramp inside the Deepcliff Interchange remains closed, and there is already some queuing pressure coming through from Uncle Charlie's. If you need to get off the N12 and onto the M1 North, you're going to have to just duck and dive and divert onto some alternative routes, and that seems to be what's causing the problem. A big crash on the R24 at Edenvale. It's just past Edenvale, actually. If you're on your way towards the airport, that is quite a heavy queue, and a crash coming out of Pretoria this morning, and one south of the R21, so traffic pretty sluggish through that section as well. Over in Durban, a collision on the N3. It is westbound at Spaghetti Junction, so traffic backing up from Sherwood. If you're on your way out of Durban towards Pinetown, that's quite an unusual backlog to work through. Cape Town, a collision on Baden-Powell Drive, just on the Khayelitsha side of Eisleben Road, so right at the bottom of Mitchell's Plain, that section of Baden-Powell Drive being held both directions into that scene. And here's one to aim to avoid the M3. If you come in from the southern suburbs, from Takai, from Constantia, stay off the M3. There's flooding across all lanes on the inbound track at Paradise Road in the Bishop Court Newlands area, and that's pushed a very heavy traffic queue back beyond the normal backlog to Constantia Main Road, so from sort of Furgrove area all the way through to Bishop's Court. Just stay off the M3. You've got plenty of options like the main road, the M5, plenty of options to get north, staying off the N3 highway. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Paying your TV license means that you can tune in to the Expresso Morning Show from 6 to 9 a.m. Mondays to Fridays right here on S3. Enjoy our entertainment, recipes, and important current affairs and updates. All of this for less than 74 cents a day or 265 Rand for an entire year. For superfast, secure, and convenient payment from any device, go onto tvlrc.co.za and click on the Fast Pay button for payment in under 3 minutes. Make a difference with Expresso and TV licenses and pay yours.
The Miss South Africa 2024 finale will be live on Saturday, the 10th of August at 6 p.m. from the Sunbet Arena, Times Square, Menlyn, Maine. Good evening, Mzansi! Get your tickets for this crowning moment by going to misssa.co.za, downloading the official Miss SA app, or purchasing your tickets on ticketpro.co.za. Come and witness it live. SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
The Olympic medalist, Tatiana Smith, representing South Africa.
Tears of joy will certainly flow for Tatiana Smith.
Smith, silver.
I think this one is much different than any of my races. I'm so fortunate to get a medal.
For the love of the game.
SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day, where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. SAfm Breakfast, helping you navigate your day.
Let's talk about this military camp with 95 Libyans found to be training. It was a briefing yesterday by Manabela Chauke, the CEO of the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority, saying that in essence, the people that were running this institution were registered. They were a registered company, but the training facility where this was found was an illegal military training camp some distance away from the accredited facility. So let's talk to TAPSOSA spokesperson, the Association of Private Security Owners of South Africa, Sindiswe Changwan. Sindiswe, thank you very much for joining us. Good morning. Should there be more regulation, and why wasn't this facility checked?
Thank you for giving us an opportunity this morning. I think dating back in 2022, we had an engagement with CIRA and also escalated the actual issue with the Minister of Police and the Portfolio Committee of Police, calling an investigation on an upsurge of security companies that are actually owned by foreign nationals who found ways of really manipulating the system to operate in this country. You know, they even go as far as employing undocumented foreigners. It was as if we had a foresight in terms of being able to see that there is actually issues that are actually brewing with regards to this. Although there is the regulation that is in place, that has been put in place, but people have found ways of being able to sort of manipulate the system. But this actually talks to the vulnerability that we do have as a country if we are going to be able to find things such as these that are actually happening. And these companies are all over the country. They are very fragmented and all over the country, and masquerading themselves as operating as security companies, masquerading themselves as training providers. And this issue that has happened in Mpumalanga, in White River, is one casing point of what we had indicated for so long from 2022, that there is this spiraling of companies that are putting the industry in a bad light.
Are there inspectors that go out and check with registered security training facilities?
The truth is, the regulator, CIRA itself, is under-resourced. And the inspectorate of CIRA has to be beefed up, because this rampant incidences that are actually happening in this country talks to our safety and security as citizens. As the industry, we had indicated, in particular TAPSOSA, that it is time that we actually come together as a collective and be able to actually be proactive, because we are on the ground in terms of being able to assist the the SIRA to identify these rogue elements that are infiltrating the industry. And in infiltrating the industry, that means that the national interest of the country is compromised. So we cannot sit back as as business and that are supposed to be responsible for the work that needs to be done to see these guys being able to thrive in a country which we need to protect.
Are you happy that the regulations are good? It's just the lack of being able to regulate those laws.
The regulations are there. There are certain things that have been put by law, in particular when it comes to SIRA, in terms of how it actually needs to govern the industry or regulate the industry. But the implementation of it is a problem, simply because SIRA is not well funded. SIRA is not capacitated enough for them to be able to actually deal. There is over 11,000 security companies in the country that are registered. And therefore, that's why we also urge government that government needs to be able to capacitate SIRA, for SIRA to be able to actually deal with these issues from the beginning. Because if we're not going to let these things be investigated and be dealt with, then that means we ourselves as citizens of this country are compromised, and the responsibility of the private security industry as well and the police is to make sure that we actually safeguard the lives of the citizens of this country. If camps like that are put up in White River and they are masqueraded to be training centers and they are conducting some military training, can you imagine what is the intent of that? And what it actually says about the industry itself.
Sindiswa Changwan, thanks very much. Tapsosa spokesperson joining us here on SAfm Breakfast.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, learners who died in Carltonville crash to be laid to rest, and Miss SA contestant's mother may have committed fraud. Good morning. The 11 learners who died in a car crash in Carltonville, west of Johannesburg, will be buried this morning. A combined funeral service for the learners will take place at the Fochville Secondary School, less than 10 kilometers away from where they died in a crash involving scholar transport last month. The learners, as well as the driver, were killed after a bakkie hit the taxi in which they were travelling to school. The driver of the bakkie, Gert van Emmenis, who allegedly collided with the scholar transport, was released on bail of 20,000 Rand. The Home Affairs Department says it has reasons to believe the person recorded in its records as Chidima Adechena's mother may have committed fraud and identity theft. The department's Minister Leon Schreiber has provided an update on the ongoing investigation into the citizenship of Adechena, a contestant in the upcoming Miss SA pageant. Dr. Schreiber says Adechena could not have participated in her mother's alleged unlawful actions as she was an infant when it happened in 2001. He says Adechena's mother may have stolen a South African woman's identity.
An innocent South African mother, whose identity may have been stolen as part of the alleged fraud, suffered as a result because she could not register her child. The department has broadened its investigation to identify and pursue any officials involved in the alleged scheme and is obtaining legal advice on the implications of the alleged fraudulent activity on Adechena's citizenship status. And finally, upon the completion of the investigation, Home Affairs intends to press criminal charges and convict all implicated parties.
5 suspects arrested in Khayelitsha on the Cape Flats following a shootout with police are expected to appear in the local magistrates' court this morning. They face numerous charges, including the alleged illegal possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition, possession of explosives, and attempted murder. 8 suspects were shot dead when they opened fire on police following a foiled cash-in-transit heist on Monday night. Police spokesperson Novella Potelwa says they seized 11 rifles, 2 pistols, and 3 explosive charges. The Mkhonto weSizwe Party and the SABC are expected to face off in the High Court in Johannesburg next week. The party has taken the SABC to court over the use of the term Government of National Unity. The MK Party has asked the court to declare the SABC's conduct as unconstitutional. According to the party, using the term constitutes a breach of the public broadcaster's independence and public mandate. Kenny Mapanga reports.
An affidavit before the court by MK Party leader, former President Jacob Zuma, contends that what he terms as the current arrangement in South Africa does not fit the definitional elements of a GNU, alleging that the use of the term deliberately misleads the public. The SABC, who recently responded to the party's cease and desist prior to the action, describing the MK Party's allegations as untenable, will oppose the MK's application. Correspondence further reveals that the hearing is scheduled to sit on Tuesday, the 13th of August 2024.
And finally, thousands of counter-protesters have rallied in cities and towns across England following far-right groups' week of rioting and disorder. Gatherings in locations where anti-immigration protests had been expected were largely peaceful, with anti-racism protesters forming the bulk of the crowd. The Police and Crime Commissioner for Sussex, Katie Bourne, has described the scene in Brighton as an anti-racism demonstration.
There were bands playing and flags waving and signs saying things like you can't spell community without unity and no hate here. The whole thing of it was that people were there to show their solidarity. Whilst from what I could see, there were probably a handful, literally 4 or 5, who perhaps didn't share the same views. They were well outnumbered. It was very encouraging to see that strength and that solidarity.
Recapping the top story, the 11 learners who died in a car crash in Carltonville, west of Johannesburg, will be buried this morning. A combined funeral service for the learners will take place at the Fochville Secondary School. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Many insurers claim to be the best, but the proof is in the numbers. Outsurance has consistently had the best ombudsman for short-term insurance results for the past 11 years. And Outsurance clients always get something out. Outsurance pays over 1.7 million rand in out bonuses every day. Why would you want to be with anyone else? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Or visit outsurance.co.za for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's and information online.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm sports headlines, it's mixed results for Team South Africa at the Olympics. There was highs in golf with Ashley Buhai shining while Wade van Niekerk had crashed out. We'll find out more at around 6:30.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, we've still got a heavy queue out towards the airport. If you're heading through Galuli's interchange, trying to avoid the R24, that collision just after the Edenvale exit, it is quite a heavy queue. You've got the option to get through Galuli's, take the M12 down to Boksburg and the R21 north through jet parking towards the airport. That'll keep you moving. The M12 west onto the M1 north at Diepkloof interchange remains closed. That's following yesterday's tanker crash. If you're leaving Durban, there's been a collision on the N3, just one lane open past Spaghetti Junction. So that's a queue that backlogs from Sherwood through 4 level down towards Pavilion. And if you're driving into Durban the other side, there's a crash now. It's a new one. It's the N3 Durban bound, so eastbound just by the M7 in Pinetown, and that's a very heavy queue back towards the Mike 1 Richmond Road area. Cape Town flooding at the top of the M3 and the Bishop's Court area by Paradise Road. That queue is all the way back beyond Constantia Main Road. It's a very heavy queue. You've got options: Rossmead Avenue, the main road, the M5, avoid the N3, and a crash on Baden-Powell Drive just by Eisleben Road, slowing traffic both ways, bottom Mitchell's Plain area. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Getting ahead of the morning with #SAfm Breakfast.
Morning to you. It's 7:08. I'm John Clerica. This is SAfm Breakfast. Coming up in a minute, we're going to have the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority to answer what TAPSOSA was saying a little bit earlier on. We're also going to find out what is a South African, this whole debacle about the Miss South Africa entrant, and also SADC are having a meeting, and there's going to be a number of highlights there, including the critical interventions required to build a capable, ethical and developmental state. All of that and plenty more coming up in the next hour, including the National Health Act. Technology might be able to help us with doctors. Now that certificate of need has fallen away, technology could come to the rescue. So there's that and more coming up in the next hour.
SA Schools football comes alive on the 9th and 10th of August 2024 at Sarah Park, Wits University for the SA Schools National Championship from 9 a.m. daily. The best under 15 boys and girls representing their province's school teams will battle it out to try and be selected into the under 15 schools national team. Bring your family and camp chairs to support your provincial under 15 team. If you're not in Gauteng, catch the games on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC Plus. For more details, visit safa.net. SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
So Sharon officing was telling me the way drip is so expensive these days. She's now waiting for her old clothes to come back into fashion. I say, Joza, while you're waiting, why not let your money do the things in a Nedbank Just Invest account where you can get your money after 24 hours notice? Oganchani, voiceman.
In Njalo, Mabel, you can earn up to 8.75% interest. Anyone can open an investment account via the Money app in under 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
The Olympic medalist, Tatiana Smith, representing South Africa.
Tears of joy will certainly flow for Tatiana Smith.
Smith, silver.
I think this one is much different than any of my races. I'm so fortunate to get a medal.
For the love of the game.
SAfm exclusive breakfast interviews, bringing you closer to the stories that matter.
Just before the news, you heard the TAPSOSA spokesperson raise a number of issues about private security. Well, let's talk to the Deputy Director of Training and Communications at SERA, Mpho Sechuaro. Mpho, good morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us. Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority. Do you have the capacity to hold the security industry liable for and all of those inspections? Have you got the capacity to do that?
Good morning, sir, and good morning to your viewers. Unfortunately, I didn't hear the interview of TAPSOSA, so I'm not sure what it is they said about us, because I was told I was going to be asked about the Libyan training. But anyway, the industry is very huge. I must admit that SERA, with only about 400 employees, we do not have the capacity due to the fiscal constraints. However, we do our best to regulate the industry.
You do your best. Do you admit that you are short-staffed and this particular one has fallen through the cracks?
Well, the industry is very huge. Like I said, we have about almost 3 million registered businesses, registered security officers and businesses, about 16,000 businesses actually, security service providers, and of the 16,000, 1,600 are training providers. Yes, indeed, we do not have capacity. However, we rely on the public to assist us in doing so, in regulating, because they do report to us of the nefarious things happening in the industry. And through those tip-offs, we do go there and regulate and inspect whatever that is going on in the industry.
So MDSS, as you said, or as your CEO said yesterday, that it was a registered company, they were accredited as a security training facility, but this extra camp 7.5 kilometers away, what implications does that have for security in South Africa?
Well, the implication that, I want to narrow it down to private security, to SERA actually. We went to do our inspection, the regular inspection, about 11 months ago to the registered facility. And there was no way we could have seen the other facility until the police alerted us to that facility. So the threat to the security is not only the responsibility of SIRA, it is the responsibility of all law enforcement agencies in the country. So that is why we work with the police, we work with all that are involved in ensuring that security officers or the country is secure. So it cannot be a sole responsibility of SIRA to ensure that the country is secured. There's Defense Department, there's a whole lot that are supposed to ensure that the country is safe. The State Security Agency as well.
Paul, how do we know that there aren't many, many more of these around the country?
I'm not sure how we would know if there aren't many unless we get a tip-off. Because what we do is to ensure that we focus on the private security industry, which is our mandate. We are not responsible for the entire security of the country, like I explained. However, we work with other security agencies in South Africa, like the police, as I mentioned. So ensuring that it must be a concerted effort. It cannot be one entity's responsibility. I mean, even the citizens themselves are responsible to ensure that we are safe. Whoever is aware of anything happening, they must report to the police. They must report it so that we all make sure that we are all safe in our country. So that can be the sole responsibility of SIRA.
Thousands of companies, private security companies, as you said. Is the vetting process legitimate, up to scratch, and making sure that everybody is legal?
Well, it is, because we don't register anyone who is not a citizen of South Africa, except for when they are here legally and they have permanent residency status. So we do make sure that everything is done according to the book. If anyone participates in our industry having not registered with us, that on its own, even if it's a South African citizen, that on its own is illegal. You've got to register with SIRA in the private security industry before you operate.
You've admitted that you are short-staffed. You admitted that there's not enough regulators and inspections happening of these facilities. Are you asking for more, or are you just putting your hands up and going, well, we're asking for the police and public to help us?
Well, it would be best to have more. However, like I said, it is everybody's responsibility. You know, we had an incident recently where someone told us about what was going on, some illegal people employed by a company. And we sent our inspectors to go and inspect that facility, and the right action was taken.
That is the Deputy Director, Training and Communications at the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority, Mpho Setshwara. Thank you very much.
Babina Noko returns to the battlefield with a great strategy to display a melody of victory. But the citizens are shaking their heads. Eric Tinkler's boys are confident that they will land successfully in the last four. This is the MTN 8 quarterfinal. Wafa Wafa. Catch Sekhukhune United FC and Cape Town City FC on Saturday, 10 August at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Miss South Africa 2024 finale will be live on Saturday, the 10th of August at 6 p.m. from the Sunbet Arena, Times Square, Menlyn, Maine. Good evening, Mzansi! Get your tickets for this crowning moment by going to missa.co.za, downloading the official Miss SA app, or purchasing your tickets on ticketpro.co.za. Come and witness it live. SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
Alan Hatherley of South Africa, as he steps up to receive the bronze medal at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. He is the first South African medal in cycling since 1912. Rudolf Lewis won the individual time trial. Congratulations, Alan Hatherley. Your country is proud of you.
For the love of the game.
Keeping you informed and ready for the day ahead on #SAfm Breakfast.
Like I've been saying, the story is not going away. The unions are now saying that schools are places of learning. After the arrest of South African pastor who stormed a school with a machete. This is the big story that we've been following for a while. Let's find out a little bit more with Basil Manuel, Executive Director of the National Professional Teachers Organisation of South Africa. Basil, the big call now is for action after that violent school incident. Is anything going to be done?
Good morning. First of all, we've been calling for this for a long time. And yes, there have been some improvements. We know that certainly if one only zones into Gauteng, that there are schools that now have security guards. Those are in what we euphemistically term the hard to teach at schools, where there are regular incidences, etc. But there needs to be an overhaul completely of security in schools. Accessibility. Access should not just be that anybody can enter the premises and get access to the inner sanctum of the school. NAPTOSA believes that visitors to schools have to stop at the office. That is where things should be handled. They shouldn't have easy access. And that, of course, demands that there are physical barriers such as fencing that prevents easy access into the rest of the school. Otherwise, you do have in many places where people go onto the premises. The story in KZN last week where a teacher was shot at and so on. Those are primarily because people have such easy access into schools.
We just spoke to private security. They're struggling to regulate there. Is it private security for these schools or should it be the police?
Well, it's impossible for it to be the police. We just don't have enough police to be stationed at every school, considering that there are in excess of 21,000 schools. So it will have to be private security. And the ones that are appointed currently, yes, are private security. It is not the police.
It's not the rich schools. It's the poorer schools, the ones that can't afford private security. Or the government is saying they just can't afford to do that. So how do we fix that problem?
Well, that is the eternal problem is about money. And I know it's not so easily solved and it's easy to identify the problem, but the solution does lie in spending money to get certain things done. Otherwise, we're simply throwing our hands up in despair, and we can't do that. And we've encouraged school communities, first of all, and we continue to do so, to take charge of the school. The school belongs to the community. And that is why if the community protects the school will not fall into the hands of criminals. And the school in question, where this kidnapping, or not kidnapping, but anyhow, the incident took place, is actually a very safe school. They are not one of the schools that has been prone to all sorts of drama. But see how easily it changes when one person, of course, pushes their way in, abuses their authority, and the perceptions change completely. Similarly, we want the community to take responsibility so that there aren't other incidents like the incident of burning down the church tent. That is not what we encourage either. But we can only work with the community of parents together with the school.
So the community as a whole, but the parents of the school, the SGB, the governing body, who might be holding things back, but also might not be listened to.
Very true. The governing body is a small little committee of parents, and the parents elect these people. They need to see that they elect the right people, but we must have sympathy also for governing bodies. These are working people. These are people that have their own lives too, and they're not so readily available to every school. However, there are many, many good governing bodies that try long after hours to work with communities and to work with schools. And we've got to get that type of activity more enhanced.
Just quickly, there's a report in the newspapers about a gang threat in the Western Cape, Philippi to be precise. There's gang members saying where security money must be paid. Half the kids not going to schools in that community. This is nationwide. It's not just in one particular school.
Yes, and we know that the Cape Flats in particular has had a very difficult time with gangsterism. Gangsterism is like a war, and it impacts on children simply just getting to school. And unless we have better policing, now that is a policing issue. It's not a private security issue. We are not going to solve that problem. And of course, this is becoming worse and worse because people see others getting away from it, whether it's construction mafia or these security guards at nightclubs, etc., getting away with it. So even the small criminal then tries to do this with the little children on the street.
Basil Manuel is the Executive Director of the National Professional Teachers Organisation of South Africa.
You are listening to SAfm Breakfast.
All right, SADC meeting is on the go. Samdoda Fekeni is the Public Service Commission chairperson. Samdoda, good morning to you. What is the overall theme of the 44th Extraordinary Ordinary Summit?
Of the chairpersons of the Public Service Commission is to establish a forum of SADC for public service commissions, something that we as South Africa have initiated. And we are in that process. Every country in the SADC region has been invited, and we have had an overwhelming support for the initiative.
Is this just another talk shop, or will things actually come out of it?
It's not a talk shop at all, because even the very foundational principles we said, we do not want to establish a forum for the meeting's sake, but rather for capacity building, for sharing of information, so that we don't replicate that which other countries already have. And we have identified programs which in return will actually assist the public service commissions to be better, to reform, and to also assist public sector reforms.
These words are great. So you're going to build a capable, ethical, and developmental state that will play a transformative and development role in realizing the vision of 2030. How do you do that with all the challenges you're facing?
The first one is to analyze the problems that these countries have been experiencing and then come up with a reform program. If I take the case of South Africa, the state capture and many other corruption reports, the service delivery failures, have led to the whole overhaul and review of the public service system. Hence, now we do have professionalization framework that was approved by Cabinet. And if it is well implemented, it will mean you are developing a meritocratic system where integrity, ethics are at the very center. You are also retraining those who are already in the system to better serve the public. And also you're working on integration and delineation of roles between political principals and the bureaucrats.
Talk about the special programs and exploration of partnerships in the region.
Yes. The partnership, for example, you'll find that countries such as Mauritius already has the Public Service Commission looking at local government. And yet here in South Africa, we are yet to extend to local government. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we will simply work together. And we were also sharing what systems are there for recruitment, because other countries have moved on into e-recruitment, into many other ways of integrating the biometric system. And that is exactly what each one of us will be learning from the other. And we will be approaching even the donors for joint training programs, capacity building programs, and also giving each other support in handling some of these reforms.
In South Africa, the GNU is talking about professionalizing the public service. Is that part of the discussion as well?
It is at the heart of the discussions, and we are actually sharing that with the other countries, and they are also sharing their own reforms and their own efforts. The issue of digitalization in the aftermath of COVID-19, where people were forced to work from home, the issue of dealing with emerging trends such as your global warming and the frequency of disasters, to say, how do you design disaster-resilient institutions and systems to make sure that services continue even in face of those challenges.
Borders will always come up as an issue when it talks about the region. Are there discussions on that?
There is a discussion on that. Remember that the issue of regional integration, the Free Continental Trade Agreement, and the issue of migration, if you do have a professional, effective public service, any government will manage those movements quite easy, as it is the case in other integrated regions such as your EU and other regions in Asia and so forth. So that is one of the things that we're looking at.
Yeah, the backlog is always the issue, just slow processing.
The backlog is always there, but once you utilize technologies and you also have an integrated system, you'll find that you save time, you save resources, but at the same time, you're a lot more accurate, and even your crime intelligence works better.
Sandoda Fikeni is a Public Service Commission chairperson, but we're going to stay with that topic in our next voice note on 0614 104 107.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAfm.
Good morning, John. This is Makwarela Chinyazo from Pembo. You know, John, when the South African citizens complained or raised complaints about the illegal foreigners that are roaming our streets, and when we try to chase them out, we are labeled xenophobic. We are labeled Afrophobic. You know, this is very wrong. Now we have a Chidima situation here. This Chidima situation is totally exposing the high level of incompetence and corruption in the Department of Home Affairs. You know, how did she obtain the citizenship in the first place? It means that there's a lot of corruption there. You know, there's a lot of corruption. I hope the new minister is going to root out the corruption and deal with all those corrupt officials.
We'll take more of your voice notes soon. Also in a minute, traffic with Rob, sport with Zion, business with Ntualeng. First, headlines at 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the African Transformation Movement, ATM, says all those implicated in alleged fraud in the Home Affairs Department must be held accountable. This follows the department's preliminary findings after its investigation into the citizenship of Chidima Adechena. The 11 learners who died in a car crash in Carltonville, west of Johannesburg, will be buried this morning. A combined funeral service for the learners will take place at the Fochville Secondary School. And 5 suspects arrested in Khayelitsha on the Cape Flats following a shootout with police are expected to appear in the local magistrates' court this morning. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
No change, apart from the fact that traffic's getting heavier south of Joburg at the Diepkloof interchange. The link off the N12 west onto the M1 north stays closed following yesterday's tanker crash incident. Quite a heavy backlog pushing back towards Xavier Street in the Ridgeway area, so you might just want to avoid that. Take routes to the north and south. Stay off that section of the N12. Crash just after the Edenvale exit on your way to the airport. It's a really heavy backlog this morning. Traffic starts to queue on the N3 onto the N12 up to the R24 and then in towards the scene. So if you need to to get to the airport for urgent flight connections, just avoid sort of Galilee's interchange. If you do find yourself in that mix, take the M12 down to Boxburg and the R21 North up via Jet Park. A breakdown on the M1 South at New Road, so heavy pressure coming through mid-Rand. Queues back as far as the old Joburg Road exit this morning. 2 collisions going in and out of Durban, one at Spaghetti Junction on your way out of town. So that's quite heavy from Sherwood. That is also just forcing extra traffic to avoid it and jam up that M13. Sherwood through to Westville, extra busy this morning at the Bridgework section. The M7 into Pinetown stays pretty badly backed up towards St John's Avenue Bridge. And the other crash coming into Durban on the N3 by the M7 seems that traffic is moving through there. Cape Town, the one to avoid today is the M3 inbound. Flooding at Paradise Road at the top of Bishop's Court. They're very heavy backlogs almost to Takai. It's a lot worse than normal. You've got options. You've got the main road. You've got Rossmead Avenue. You've got the M5, which incidentally isn't moving too badly. So a lot of other options to avoid that M3 this morning. And a crash on Baden-Powell Drive between Swartklip Road and Eisleben Road at the bottom of Mitchell's Plain. Still delaying traffic quite badly both directions. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Thank you very much. Let's kick things off on a high. This time, South Africa's Ashley Buhai leading the charge yesterday at the Paris Olympics. She shot a 4 under par 68 in the women's golf tournament to finish the first round in second place. She trails leader Celine Bautier by 3 shots, while Paula Reto struggled in the golf, finishing with a 6 over 78. Meanwhile, Wade van Niekerk, the former Olympic 400-meter champion, eliminated in the 200-meter semi-finals, finishing 8th in his heat. Sean Maswangani also missed out on the 200-meter final by 0.11 seconds. Now, Botswana's Letsile Tebogo set the fastest time in the men's Olympic 200-meter semi-finals, proving his intent to upset the American Noah Lyles' quest for a sprint double. Tebogo, the reigning world bronze medalist, overtook the American 100 meters champion on the bend and cruised the rest of the way unchallenged to finish 19.96 seconds. Now, South African Joanne van Dijk delivered a personal best of 64.22 meters in the women's javelin to secure a spot in Sunday's final, while rising star Brian Raats cleared 2.24 meters in the men's high jump qualifiers, also progressing to the final. Edmund du Plessis took second in his 800-meter heat, advancing directly to the semi-finals, while South African paddler Hamish Lovemore advancing to the semi-finals in the men's kayak singles, with diver Julia Vincent securing her spot in the women's 3-meter springboard semi-finals. Hockey action, the Netherlands reaching their 6th successive Olympic women's hockey final with a 3-0 thrashing of Argentina, while China, their women beat Belgium's women 3-2 in a penalty shootout to advance 1-1 after that was in regulation time. Now, China will play the powerhouse Netherlands, looking to repeat that gold medal from Tokyo in their 6th consecutive Olympic final. Now, European champions Poland, they stormed into the Olympic men's volleyball final with a 5-set win over the United States, giving themselves a chance of winning a first gold medal since 1976. Cricket action. Rain interrupted the first day of the Test series between South Africa and the West Indies at Queen's Park Oval, with the Proteas reaching 45 for 1. Only 15 overs were bowled before play was abandoned. Aiden Markram was the only wicket to fall, and that was when he was bowled by Jason Holder for 9 runs. Tony de Zorzi remains unbeaten on 32, showing promise at the top of the order. Now, this is South Africa's first test since their series lost in New Zealand 5 months ago. Play is set to resume today, weather permitting. And finally, EFC veteran Luke Michael will look to crown his 10 years in the MMA fraternity by claiming the vacant middleweight championship. The young gun surrendered the title at EFC 112 to JP Kruger in April and is now eager to make amends against Jaco du Plessis tonight. Speaking in the build-up to the fight night, Michael had this to say.
What a journey with EFC. I'm only 29 years old, but I've been with the organisation for 10 years. I know it's my ups and downs has been there, but I've truly come into my own, especially this preparation. I'm so excited to become two-time middleweight champion. You know, about my last fight, I went out there, I was out for 2 years, knee surgery. In my opinion, I smashed him in round 1, and, you know, I felt the ring rush in round 2. No excuses, he beat me. That fight had to happen. It put me in this position now. It made me the man and the fighter I am right now. And that man and fight is about to become champion on the 8th of August. And there's absolutely nothing that anyone can do about it. Mark my words.
And that's how we leave you here at Sport. We'll have headlines top of the hour. I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAfm.
Tauling Lachela, good morning to you again. There's competition in the weight loss drug industry.
A competitive market and supply constraints are weighing on drug maker Novo Nordisk. Now, the company known for making weight loss and obesity drugs Wegovy and Ozempic has had a tough quarter. During the period, the company reported weaker sales and cut its outlook. Novo now expects its operating profit to grow by 20 to 28%, down from the previously forecasted range of 22 and 30%. In terms of supply, Novo Nordisk is struggling to keep up with the surging demand for its medications, leading to a shortage in supply. And to deal with this, the group is investing in more manufacturing facilities. Looking at competition now, everyone is trying to get a piece of that weight loss pie. We have the likes of US company Eli Lilly attempting to gain more market share. We also have new players trying to get into the market. Pfizer and Russia making progress with developing their own weight loss drugs. So it'll be interesting to see how Europe's most valuable company, Novo, tackles all of the issues.
We're going to be paying more to watch Star Wars.
Consumers should expect to pay more for their Disney Plus subscriptions from mid-October, John. As part of the shift in prices, though, the company will be introducing more channels. Now, Disney, like other traditional media giants, is transitioning to streaming from broadcast, where it said audiences are shrinking and ad sales are declining. Now, this announcement comes alongside its second quarter results, where it's topped analyst expectations, and its streaming services unit turned a profit for the first time. This was ahead of schedule, as the company only expected that division to turn a profit in the fourth quarter. Now, despite this, the group's theme parks unit is still under pressure, being impacted by slowing consumer demand as well as inflation.
What's happening in the markets today?
Taking a look at Asian markets, those stocks mostly in the red after posting a strong finish yesterday on the back of dovish comments from the Bank of Japan. Traders in that region today have turned their attention to data out from Japan. The country's current account surplus for June came in at $10.2 billion, lower than the economist expectations. With that, the Japanese Nikkei is down 0.25%, while China's Shanghai index rose by 0.14%. In Wall Street, futures pretty flat ahead of weekly initial jobs numbers. Traders on that front are will also rather be digesting company results. Back at home, the global upbeat sentiment finally filtering through to the local market, with the JSE making gains in its last session, up 1.18%. In your currencies, the rand is slightly recovering. Volatility still remains, but the local unit is trading slightly stronger at 18.33 to the dollar.
Tauling Lachela, thank you very much, and she'll be looking ahead to today's markets locally in an hour's time.
Africa Update on SAfm.
Good morning, Advocate Sipho Mantula. First time this week, we're not talking about Nigeria as your top story. You're off to Tunis.
A tax seat on Nigeria, probably tomorrow, John. But looking at Tunisia, we saw the reshuffling of the Prime Minister's office yesterday by Tunisian President Kais Saied, removing Prime Minister Ahmed Hachani and appointing Kamel Madori as interim Prime Minister. They are going for the elections in October, but Hachani was only appointed for a year. He was appointed last year, August, and he has said that there are still challenges in his country in terms of food security and the issue of electricity outages that is facing Tunisia. Others are saying Professor Kais Saied is facing challenges towards the elections in October.
And in the Comores, the president and his son working together. What's happening?
They will always say in the name of the Father and the Son in terms of governance in Africa, John. But Noor El Fatah, the son of Comoros President Azali Ousmane, has been given powers. He was a security advisor of his father in 2019, but now he has been given powers as a Secretary General of the government to now oversee. He has been given what they say presidential and constitutional powers by his father to now oversee the government affairs. And that also says that his son, others are saying, is to prepare his son come 2029 to be the next president of Comoros.
In the DRC, the UN Security Council is supporting the SADC mission there. What does support mean?
Supporting it means that the UN Security Council has to look at the UN mission in the DRC, MONUSCO, and now says that they are now giving lead to the SADC mission in the DRC, which is led by South Africa, despite others are still lamenting and questioning our deployment of our troops in DRC. John, what does it mean? The Security Council have said that both intelligence and support of MONUSCO must be given to the SADC mission as MONUSCO is phasing out of the DRC. You'll understand that the conflict in the DRC has been involving Rwanda and DRC and others. Rwanda saying MONUSCO and UN must not allow the UN to support the SADC mission. That will not make sense, John, because we have to support the existing mission, which is the SADC mission, and the phasing out of MONUSCO must be able to give a proper handover.
And still tensions in Zimbabwe.
Robert, Emerson Mnangagwa yesterday had a breakfast praying for the others are saying praying for a 44th Ordinary SADC Summit of Heads of State slated for the 17 and 18, which is next week. This will be for the fourth time Zimbabwe hosting the summit. It hosted the summit in 1981, 1989, and 2014. It means almost 10 years ago. But now, Mnangagwa praying now, John. I don't know where are the prayers going now, praying for the role of churches, that it should be a peaceful 44th Ordinary Summit of SADC, having challenges of the civil society in Zimbabwe, asking for better space to engage on the challenges that are facing the SADC region.
And what's your archive today?
The archive is still sticking to the eve of the National Women's Day tomorrow, which will be in Northern Cape. I looked at 18 years ago what happened in Mangaung, in Bloemfontein. The formation of the Progressive Women's Movement of South Africa was launched, John. Very important that one of their preambles was that they want to salute the pioneers that paved the way for us. They remember the gallant heroines and heroes who rose against colonialism, protesting against the past laws, united against unjust labor laws. And these were some of the words that came out from that launch of Progressive Women. It was 50 years by then of the 1956 March to the Union Building. Tomorrow we'll be talking about 68 years of the March to the Union Building by the women of South Africa. But to Achinta in Bogoto, John, that will be the message tomorrow that will be coming from Northern Cape. Asante Sana is still leading the conversation, SAfm, observing the Women's Month.
Advocate Sipho Mantula, thanks very much.
Winners, finalists, fan favorites, and viral sensations from previous seasons of America's Got Talent return to the stage to compete for the All-Star title. Join Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Simon Cowell as they decide who is the best of the best. The creme de la creme, the top dog, is in Chamatota. It's a festival of talent on America's Got Talent All-Stars. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. on S3. Channel your best entertainment with America's Got Talent All-Stars. Only on S3. Open up.
The Miss South Africa 2024 finale will be live on Saturday, the 10th of August at 6 p.m. from the Sunbet Arena, Times Square, Menlyn, Maine. Good evening, Mzansi! Get your tickets for this crowning moment by going to missa.co.za, downloading the official Miss SA app, or purchasing your tickets on ticketpro.co.za. Come and witness it live.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. Contestants are taken on a flavor journey and must work in teams to bake a colorful, multi-layered cake inspired by the smooth vibes of a tropical island. featuring special guest judges Mimi and Holly from Baking with the Rays. That's the Tastemaster Junior, Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
You are listening to SAfm Breakfast.
Home Affairs Deputy Minister Njabulu Nzuza confirmed that Miss South Africa hopeful Chidima Adechina qualified for citizenship, being born in South Africa to what was then a South African mother. But as you've heard, there's more to that than meets the eye. Let's find out what makes a South African. Ashraf Isop is an immigration attorney. Ashraf, good morning to you. What is a South African?
Hi, good morning. Well, the South African Citizenship Act determines all of these issues. So there's three ways that one can be deemed to be a South African citizen. The first is obviously by birth. Now, when I say obviously by birth, you're born here to South African parents.
Okay.
The second is by descent. The descent is where, irrespective of place of birth, you have one parent who is a South African citizen. And the third is by naturalization. Now, naturalization is a legal process that takes you from being a permanent residence permit holder to a citizen after 5 years of being a permanent resident permit holder.
Okay, that first part you said was very important, and I think you made a point of that. Two South African parents. Initially, we thought that the mother was South African, but now there's this update that the mother might have stolen someone's identity. So what does that mean?
So what that really means is the following, and there's a very important case recently in January of this year. It's called PPM versus the Minister of Home Affairs. Home Affairs has got this ability to block your ID if there's anything that is suspicious. For example, somebody's acquired an ID illegally, or they've falsified birth records. That's the other way of getting citizenship illegally, where they file a late birth registration. This was commonplace over the years. So what happens now, and Home Affairs is the only department that controls our identity and status in the Republic. Home Affairs would be entitled to do a number of things. They can interview the mother. They can call for a DNA test of the mother, as they would do if a child is born to a foreign parent. They call for a DNA test between the South African child and the foreign parent, and that usually puts an end to that inquiry. Now, the mother's status will be investigated by the department to really determine how she obtained her citizenship in the Republic. Were her parents one or both South African citizens? If so, where's their birth records? You'd appreciate that right now the department is busy with digitizing all 300 million pieces of our papers and records going back to about the 1800s, just to make sure that there isn't any system leaks, that can allow for this kind of thing.
How does this affect Chidima? That's the question. If she was born in Soweto, but even if her parents were both foreigners, one of them allegedly illegal, does that mean she's not a South African citizen?
Well, at present, until that has been upset by either the Department of Home Affairs giving her an opportunity to come forward and prove her citizenship, she's a citizen. And that's the importance of the PPM case. 1.8 million people's IDs were blocked. And the court said, no, you can't just put a hold. You got to invite the people. You got to have a conversation. You got to let them come with legal representation and documentation. Give them a chance. Don't just take a unilateral action and block somebody's ID. No, follow due process. And part of due process is to invite you to participate in this inquiry. Let's have an open have an open conversation about it almost. Let's level the playing field. Give you an opportunity to debate. say, no, look, I think the department's records are wrong. Look, here's the real thing. Here's the mum's birth certificate. Here's the mum's grand's birth certificate. This is where they lived. This is what happened. So, unlike America, merely being born in the Republic does not confer any rights of citizenship on the person. So in this case, until otherwise proven, she remains a South African citizen.
Okay, so for John to understand it, we're innocent until proven guilty. She is South African until proven otherwise.
Yeah, until the department is able to say, look, here's the evidence that demonstrate your parent was not a citizen. And then the whole thing collapses because you can't benefit from your own wrong or the wrong of somebody else, you see.
As far as you know, with Miss South Africa, do you have to, you've got to be a South African citizen to be a Miss South Africa?
I'm not sure about what the rules of Miss South Africa competition is. And there is a fourth category that's often overlooked.
Yeah.
The Minister of Home Affairs, who himself was accused of being Zimbabwean almost on the first day in office, he has a discretion. He can extend citizenship to anyone if they have a high worth for the Republic. You know, if you're a scientist of some kind, or so you get honorary citizenship.
All right, Ashraf Aesop, immigration attorney, giving us the black and white. That's an ongoing story as well. It's 7 minutes to 8.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. No change on the N12 West into Deep Cliff interchange, apart from the fact that traffic's getting heavier. The ramp off the N12 West onto the N1 North for a turn up towards Rancho Road, for a turn towards Soweto Ridapur, remains closed following yesterday's tanker crash and spillage. The traffic is heavy on the N12. It's backed right through to Xavier Street in the Ridgeway area. Routes to the north and south, like Rifle Range and Columbine, are obviously taking some extra volume. Now, if you're on your way to the airport, an earlier crash just past the Edenvale exit, still causing a backlog through to Galulis on the N12. You might want to just bypass that and take the N12 down to Boksburg in the 21 North up through Jet Park. Keep yourself moving that way. Major delays around Pretoria this morning. Big traffic on the N1 South coming from Linwood Road down to Rigel, and northbound you're backlogging from the R21 up towards Garsfontein. So looks like an issue there between Rigel and Garsfontein having a big impact on both sides. Durban this morning, earlier crash on the N3 outbound at Spaghetti Junction. That scene has been cleared. The crash on the N3 inbound at the M7 in Pinetown has also been sorted out. M4 into central Durban through Congella remains heavy, and a power outage in the Durban CBD. Lots of lights down on multiple routes in that busy CBD. And then Cape Town, there's a burst water pipe causing some flooding all over the M3 at Paradise Road. The M3 to Cape Town this morning is certainly worth avoiding. There's a backlog that extends now back beyond Constantia and back towards Tokai. You've got plenty of options just at a sort of throughout. You've got the M5, you've got Main Road, you've got Rossmead Avenue, all of those routes. Not too bad on those routes to get up to town. A little bit busier, but the M3 should be avoided. It's a heavy backlog. And there's also still some very heavy traffic coming out of Tableview this morning. Marine Drive from Bayside all the way down to the first lights at Sunset Beach. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
South Africa 26, Australia 19. The bronze medal for South Africa from Paris 2024.
Olympic medal is very, very special, and sometimes you only realize it a year or two afterwards. I'm really grateful for our players that they could call themselves Olympic medalists.
For the love of the game.
Weeknights on S3 are all about winning, and winning big with Wheel of Fortune. For the first time in South Africa, Wheel of Fortune is on S3, Monday to Friday at 7:30 p.m, where Rorisang has South Africans locked into the world of word puzzles. Watch contestants spin the wheel to stand a chance of walking away with 100,000 Rand, or a car valued at over 500,000 Rand. You can also be part of the show and win big. To be part of the show, log on to wheeloffortunesa.tv and let the wheel decide your fate. Channel your inner wordsmith with Wheel of Fortune SA on S3. Open up.
SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. Getting ahead of the morning with hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
A few minutes to talk about a good news story. You'll know that the certificate of need for doctors in the new NHI can't be forced upon doctors. The government can't control where healthcare workers can provide practice, but technology might be able to help that. Dr. Mbuyisi Mzukwa is the South African Medical Association chairperson. Doc, you say technology will be able to help those remote areas.
Good morning to you, John, and your team and fellow listeners, and also happy birthday to SAfm.
Thanks.
Yes, John, I think that, we agree, with, the fact that technology can play a role. But I just want to say, for an effective rollout of NHI will really depend on many things because, that there's so many uncertainties around the NHI. There are questions that have not been asked. But the issue is, you've got to look at, you can't ignore the socio-economic and environmental determinants of health, issues of housing, education, work provision, work and things like water provision and, just basically the infrastructure. But even if you do suggest technology as one of the ways to achieve your goal of universal health coverage, you've got to think about, in which environment you use that technology. For example, if you've got a community that is lacking in health literacy, if communities are not empowered to know the importance of health, a healthy diet, physical activity, stopping smoking, and reduction of alcohol, and the issue of violence as well. I don't think even if we have that technology, we can, achieve the goals that we want. But also that is coupled with ethical leadership, because you must remember, John, if we have access to technology, then we can pick up this, it's like a screening exercise. But if the system itself is not ready in terms of ethical leadership, management, of patients, as it happens in most cases with cancer, where you find there's massive screening of patients with cancer. Cancer is diagnosed, but when they have to access healthcare, in terms of further management, you find that the system is not ready for them. So that's one thing that we need to encourage. But also, yes, technology is one of the ways, that can be used by people, because we know already that some people most people have got smartphones. I'm not sure, John, if we can use, people are able to use those smartphones, or they're just receiving calls and making calls and accessing WhatsApp and stuff like that. And that's the only thing they can do. I'm not sure.
All right, Doc, unfortunately, we have to leave it there. This is an ongoing conversation, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again. Dr. Mbuyisi Mzukwa is South African Medical Association chairperson. We can use technology, but as he says, we need those nurses and medical assistants that'll be on the ground as well. It's all very well looking at things on your phone, but there's much more to it. It's an ongoing conversation about the NHI. You're with SAfm, it's 8 o'clock.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
Now, in our top stories, ATM welcomes preliminary findings into Miss SA finalist citizenship, and learners who died in Carltonville crash to be laid to rest. Good morning. The African Transformation Movement, ATM, says all those implicated in alleged fraud in the Home Affairs Department must be held accountable. This follows the department's preliminary findings after its investigation into the citizenship of Chidima Adechina. The department's minister, Dr. Leon Schreiber, yesterday announced they had reasons to believe Adechina's mother may have committed fraud and identity theft. He says the Miss SA pageant finalist could not have participated in her mother's alleged unlawful actions, as she was an infant when it happened in 2001. The ATM has welcomed the department's preliminary findings. The party spokesperson is Zaman Chona.
One of the questions we asked was the issue of how the parents, of the origins of the parents in terms of where they were born, how they entered the country, how they acquired their citizenship. And in this preliminary report, there seems to be an answer or maybe a preliminary finding that points to an answer. The only thing that we are asking for to the department is that the department must probe further and give us a fuller picture of what actually transpired.
The 11 learners who died in a car crash in Carltonville, west of Johannesburg, will be buried this morning. A combined funeral service for the learners will take place at the Fochville Secondary School, less than 10 kilometers away from where they died in a crash involving scholar transport last month. The learners, as well as their driver, were killed after a bakkie hit the taxi in which they were travelling to school. The driver of the bakkie, Gert van Emmenis, who allegedly collided with the scholar transport, was released on bail of 20,000 rand. 5 suspects arrested in Khayelitsha on the Cape Flats following a shootout with police are expected to appear in the local magistrates' court this morning. They face numerous charges, including the alleged illegal possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition, possession of explosives and attempted murder. 8 suspects were shot dead when they opened fire on police following a foiled cash-in-transit heist on Monday night. The police spokesperson Novella Potelwa says they seized 11 rifles, 2 pistols and 3 explosive charges. The Nkuna family in Nkomazi, Mpumalanga, has called on authorities to do more to fight gender-based violence. This after the Nkuna family's daughter was killed allegedly by a spouse in Kabokweni near White River. It's alleged the perpetrator then turned the gun on himself. Anele Twala speaks on behalf of the bereaved family.
When I reached to that house, I found her naked on the floor. I think he shot her on the left-hand side of the head, right? And as for him, he was lying on top of the bed, half naked.
And finally, 3 Taylor Swift concerts in the Austrian capital Vienna have been cancelled because of a security threat. 2 men have been detained on suspicion of planning an attack, the BBC's Bethany Bell reports.
Police say the 2 people who were arrested had become radicalised via the internet. One of them, a 19-year-old Austrian citizen, recently took an oath of allegiance. Chemical substances were found at his home. Police say the suspects had planned to target large events in Vienna, including the Taylor Swift concerts. Investigations are continuing. The organiser, Barracuda Music, said that with the confirmation of the planned attack, they had no choice but to cancel the 3 scheduled shows for everyone's safety. It said all tickets would be automatically refunded.
Recapping the top story, the African Transformation Movement ATM says all those implicated in alleged fraud in the Home Affairs Department must be held accountable. This follows the department's preliminary findings after its investigation into the citizenship of Chidima Adechina. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Your insurer makes many promises, but can they back it up? Outsurance can. That's why they're the best insurance company in South Africa. Outsurance has consistently had the best ombudsman for short-term insurance results for the past 11 years and awarded best short-term insurer by News24 for the past 2 years. Why would you want to be with anyone else? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754, or visit outsurance.co.za for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. A licensed insurer and FSP, TCs and information online.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm Sports headlines, South Africans in action day 14 at the Olympics. Ashley Buhai will continue her strong performance in the round 2 at around 22 minutes past 10 this morning. And we also have the men's 4x100 meter relay team will race in the heats at 11:35. Details at around 6:30.
SAfm. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, if you're leaving Pretoria, very heavy backlogs on the M1 at this hour. Queues from Linwood Road down to an obstruction between Garsfontein and Rigel Avenue. You've got to get to Rigel Avenue really before you're out of that. R24 towards the airport, still queuing through to a crash scene just past the Edenvale exit. And the N12 worth avoiding this morning. Standing traffic from Xavier Street through to the ramp closure in the Diepkloof interchange following yesterday's tanker crash. Durban, a power outage in the CBD. Lots of lights down, so expect some congestion. The M4 running inbound stays heavy from Umbilo up towards the closure of Brook Street around that demolition of China Mall. And Cape Town today, here's one to stay well away from as well. It's the M3 inbound. There's some flooding, a burst pipe at Bishop's Court, so flooding across the M3 into town just by Paradise Road. And it's a major backlog that's now beyond Constantia and back towards Tokai. Plenty of alternative routes through that area. Get onto those. Avoid the M3 inbound. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Getting ahead of the morning with hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
8 minutes past 8, I'm John Gericke. We're hoping to get hold of the Cape Town mayor who has urged President Cyril Ramaphosa not to gazette the public procurement bill into law. We'll find out why he disagrees with that. And there's a microbes summit happening in Johannesburg. It's happening in Cape Town. Microbes and their interactions and the focus is a major international meeting that's happening there. They're going to be discussing many things, bacteria, fungi, viruses, and their effect on climate change as well. And then towards the end of the show, we're going to talk about tourism and the crucial role it plays in South Africa's economy. So a busy final hour of the show.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. Contestants are taken on a flavor journey and must work in teams to bake a colorful, multi-layered cake inspired by the smooth vibes of a tropical island. Featuring special guest judges Mimi and Holly from Baking with the Rays. That's the Tastemaster Junior, Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
The Olympic medalist, Tatiana Smith, representing South Africa.
Tears of joy will certainly flow for Tatiana Smith.
Smith, silver.
I think this one is much different than any of my races. I'm so fortunate to get a medal.
For the love of the game.
SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
SAfm 104 to 107 nationwide.
It's 10 minutes past 8. You're with SAfm. Let's go to Mike. You want to talk about what's happening in the UK?
John, long time.
Yep.
Nice to hear you back.
Thanks.
John, I want to just comment on two things. First of all, the one called the voice note who's complaining about the fact that we get called xenophobic in South Africa when we have undocumented illegal immigrants, and I think that is unfair for people to do that. And secondly, the caller spoke about the immigration problem into the UK. Well, he's absolutely correct. The immigration problem is not just England, it's worldwide. It's worldwide in many cases. But I was very upset by the interview, well, upset but concerned about the interview you had with the other gentleman earlier on in the show, where he talked about the far right in England. Now, what's happened in England is nothing to do with the far right. They've got illegal immigration coming to England. About 45,000 entered England into society. So what is happening is now the British people in general are now complaining and saying, look, you guys can come into England, but you have to come in normally, just like South Africa would want. You have to come in through the real channels. And when you do come into the country, you have to integrate. So it was very unfair of that lady as well to say that the far right are causing trouble. The far right are not causing trouble. It's just simply people in England are saying enough is enough. You can't have thousands and thousands of people coming into the country, using all the services and getting paid money, taking accommodation, taking up national health, and not integrating into society. There are now no-go areas, John. In England, where the police are too scared to go. We had a situation in Manchester Airport with 2 young thugs beat 3 policemen up, and 8 days later, as I speak to you right now, have not been arrested because the government is too scared to arrest them because there will be riots. That's what Britain is dealing with.
Mike in the UK saying it's not right wing. Let's go to AB in Durban. Same topic. How's it, AB?
Hi, John. You know, the sheer hypocrisy of this racist anti-immigrant movement in the UK and Europe really sticks in my throat. Let's not forget, it's the very same UK and European countries like France, Germany, Spain, etc., went all around the world, colonizing countries, subjugating the people, killing millions, erasing their cultures, and also, very importantly, plundering their resources. Is it any wonder that in different parts of Africa you have French spoken, next door we have Portuguese, and here we have Dutch and so on? People from countries that were impoverished by the colonial enterprise are heading to greener pastures in Europe and UK. So-called chickens coming home to roost. A good sign is the new move by Africa to boot out the former colonialists who still have a stranglehold on the minerals of these countries. And what's really shocking is that the African countries still have to pay some sort of reparation for these looters for the infrastructure they built when they were in control. Niger is a wonderful example of kicking out the French recently. France has been stealing Niger's uranium for decades to run their power stations and now has a huge problem keeping the lights on. So people shouldn't cry if people from Africa are going to Britain or Europe. And in a way, it's sort of reverse colonization. I like it. Thanks, John.
AB in Durban, thank you very much. Let's go to talk about private security. We're going to play voice notes on this after you, Moses. Go ahead.
Morning, John.
Yep.
Yeah, John, I was listening to the interview with the lady from the private security.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so scary what is happening in this country. You know, we've got a problem. We started so well when we actually get this freedom from changing from apartheid to the freedom. We were having credible leaders who were leading us so nicely, Nelson Mandela and those elderly people. But we actually started to run helter-skelter when the ANC was hijacked in Polokwane by the hyenas and scavengers. That's Thabo Mbeki's word. That we are no longer led by credible people, but in Godoy. That was Thabo Mbeki. You know, in Polokwane 2007, when Jacob Zuma was elected the president, there was a buzzword there, where some other people who are from his faction saying, it's Katise to Sohutla. Now it's the time for us to eat. Where in the world can we have people that are elected who are saying such a thing instead of leading people of South Africa? You know, we've got a problem.
Moses? Thank
you
very much, Moses. Blaming it solely on the ANC. Let's take some voice notes. 086 000 2032.
Good morning, SAfm and listeners. You know, me as a concerned South African, I feel like vomiting when I hear these people that are hired by government of ANC talking on the radio, because they've got a lot of unnecessary excuses. We've been talking about these things that is happening in this country for a very long time. These undocumented foreigners that are hired by these companies of this country. You can name them, from the drug industry, security industry, anywhere, the farms and so on. But no one was listening to us, but today they want to make excuses. I feel like vomiting, seriously. I thank you.
Good
Morning, John. The private security industry is a huge industry. We are paying money every month. We are paying money to renew our PESERA certificate every year, every second year. It's a lot of money. It's millions. What are they doing with that money? Yeah, they're crying they're understaffed, yet we're paying millions that they don't tell us how much money they're making every year or every 5 years. In KZN, there's one office in Durban for the entire province. In Eastern Cape, there's one in Port Elizabeth and one in Mthatha. What are they doing with all this money? They're not improving, they're not employing more people. What happens to all these millions?
Tabo's in 20. Morning, Tabo.
Morning, John. How are you?
Lekker, go ahead.
I'm all right. John, I'm actually in the security industry.
Right.
I've been in the security industry for the past 20 years. I opened my company in 1999. The SERA, I listened to the interview with your lady from SERA, and whatever she's saying is said, because SERA is the biggest culprit. In the sense that at one time we did an audit in our area. There were 2,000 companies. Out of 2,000 companies, only 144 was registered with SERA. And we compiled a list and we gave them to SERA. And instead of actually evaluating those companies, because we supply them with addresses, telephone numbers, and everything, instead, the companies that are legitimate like ours, we get harassed. I'm not lying to you. For the past 6 months, I've been evaluated 8 times. Yet there is 2-3 companies next door that we have reported to SERA and they're not doing anything about it. And we know they are not registered. We know they are underpaying their people. We know because their guys actually come to us looking for a job and they still paid under the envelope.
All right. So when I asked them about the vetting of the companies, are they doing it correctly? They said yes. You disagree with that?
No, that's hogwash. That is, I've got proof. I can send you information. That is hogwash. That is just public relations that they are trying to play in the radio, because they are the biggest scam. They run the biggest scam in the security industry. I can guarantee you the issue in White River. Somebody knew about it. Somebody was paid, and somebody just looked aside, and they let it happen continuously. I have sent some of my guys for VIP protection in White River. Yeah. I know that company. I know that SERA was aware about it because we raised concern about these issues from 2005 up to now. I can tell you some of the companies that we actually submitted to SERA for evaluation, they're still operating. And they do nothing about it. But it's because when they go and evaluate these people, they get paid, and the inspectors look aside. The security industry is so bad that, and we are, the legitimate companies like ours that has been operating for the past 20 years are actually the ones that are harassed because we refuse to pay the inspectors.
Tabo, thank you very much. An ongoing story, so maybe this White River story, it's raised the issue, and now we know about it. Let's focus on it. Hassan, finally in Johannesburg for now. How's it, Hassan?
It's Kasim.
Kasim, sorry, hi.
Morning, John. How are you?
Lekker, go ahead.
The gentleman that phoned from the UK with the UK riots, he must actually give the correct facts. The boy that altercation with the police at the airport was that the boy's mother was being racially abused on the plane. And these boys confronted the person that was racially abusing them. And I don't know if you saw the video how the police gentlemen were actually stumped and beat the guy on his head. Then number 2, the riot is it was a Rwandan guy that actually stabbed 3 kids. And suddenly now it has become an Islamic thing where Muslims are being harassed and mosques being vandalized, and that. It's a Rwandan guy. It's not a Muslim guy. It's not a Pakistani. So the guy who phoned from the UK must get his facts, or he must speak the correct, or give the correct facts, not incorrect facts, and create the Islamic phobia. Thanks, John.
He was born in the UK. The stand.
No, he was born in UK.
So he's a UK citizen.
Yes, and he's a Rwandan. His parents are from Rwanda, and he was born in the UK, and
Born
a
in the
UK
UK.
citizen.
Yeah.
And he's not a Pakistani or an Indian Muslim.
No, he's British.
Yes, he's British. So why now become
Yeah, that was the question.
Islamophobia
We raised
thing?
that question. Kasim, thank you very much. In Johannesburg, you're with SAfm. It's 21 minutes past 8.
EFC is live this Thursday. Former middleweight champion Luke Michael, determined to regain his title, must do battle with undefeated CIT powerhouse Jaco du Plessis for the vacant middleweight championship in the truly sensational main event live from the World Sports Betting Arena. EFC 116 this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
South Africa 26, Australia 19. The bronze medal for South Africa from Paris 2024.
Olympic medal is very, very special, and sometimes you only realize it a year or two afterwards. I'm really grateful for our players that they could call themselves Olympic medalists.
For the love of the game.
John Gerika on SAfm.
23 minutes past 8 o'clock. Let's talk about a big conference that's happening down in Cape Town. We're joined by the full professor in the Department of Microbiology and the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking at Stellenbosch University, Professor Thulani Makalanyane. Prof, thank you very much for joining us. A conference on microbes. Who would have thought? What are you going to be talking about?
Thanks, John, for the opportunity. Yep, it's a conference of microbes, and we'll have more than 1,500 scientists from over 50,000 for 50 countries who will come and discuss the role of microbial communities and how important they are for virtually all processes that occur on the planet.
It's important that this is happening in Africa. Tell us why.
This is the first international symposium on microbial ecology. There have been 19 of them, and this will be the first time that it's held on the African continent. It's important for a number of reasons. One is that on the continent, we do not have as much capacity for microbiome research. So holding this meeting here is essentially an opportunity to assemble global experts to come to South Africa and start that process of initially building capacity, but also showcasing the latest developments in the field.
All right, Prof, why should we care about what microbes, well, first of all, what's a microbe, and why should we care about them?
So I guess by now everyone is an expert on COVID, right? COVID is a virus, and that's just one example of a microorganism.
Okay.
But there are several other microorganisms. There's essentially, estimates suggest more than trillions of microorganisms in every system that you look at. So they drive important biological processes. You know about microbes that make you sick, but there's several other microbes that provide what we call important ecosystem services, so that they provide, let's say, natural products that may be beneficial. And all of these microbes have not been well studied, so that's why you should care.
They're good and bad. I think that's the important thing as well. Are you focusing on either one of those or just all of them in general?
So we're focusing on all microbes in general.
Right.
The conference will have over 22 parallel sessions. We'll talk about microbes that are involved in agriculture. We'll talk about microbes that may have medicinal importance. So we'll cover microbes that play a role in marine environments. So we'll cover all spheres of microbiome research.
One of the things you're doing, you're going out to Kirstenbosch. There's going to be a public outreach program. What are you hoping to achieve there?
Yeah, so this is just an opportunity because we realize you called it talk shops earlier on the program.
Yeah.
These tend to happen among specialists in the field. So what we'd like to do is essentially break down those academic barriers and invite members of the public to learn more about the research that we do. So we'll have a public event that will happen on Wednesday next week at Kirstenbosch Gardens, where we've invited community leaders, school learners at high school, and members of the public can also come and join to listen to 3 experts talk about the role of microbes and their relationship with climate change. So we'll have an expert talk about microbes linked to health, microbes linked to marine ecosystems, microbes linked to terrestrial or soil ecosystems, and how they might be impacted by the advent of climate change, and how some of the products that we derive from them might change as a result.
Besides them being very small, what are the challenges you experience in studying these things? Because, as you said, there's millions of them. There's different types of them. There's formats. Have we got enough research and people to do this research?
So you've outlined the problems in your question. So they're small, there's millions of them, and that makes it very challenging to study them because of those two reasons. These microbes are also constantly interacting, right? So you need sophisticated sequencing equipment to be able to capture those interactions. That also means that you need the appropriate computational resources because we study these microbes they produce very large sequence data, and you need people with the appropriate computational techniques and abilities to be able to study these microbes, irrespective of the system in which they occur.
Okay, that's why you're part of computational thinking as well. And I imagine they change, don't we use microbes to test evolution as well because they evolve so quickly?
Yep, absolutely. So that's part of the challenge, again, in studying these microbes, because in any system that you look at them, let's take an example and mention agricultural soils. You'd have millions of microorganisms in a gram of soil. They're constantly sharing genes, and that impacts on the type of microbes that you have and the ecosystem services that they derive, right? So you can take a sample in the morning and in the afternoon, and you might see different members of that consortia. So that, of course, provides a technological challenge in being able to study these organisms.
Is there a future for young people in microbiology on the continent?
I would certainly like to think so. There is a future depending on the type of training that they're able to study. We offer, of course, at the university lots of technical degrees related to data science, and that's got applications across wider spheres, not just within microbiology.
And then what comes out at the end of this symposium?
So we, of course, symposiums are about having an opportunity to collaborate with scholars from around the world. That knowledge interchange is quite important in terms of advancing our own understanding. But we hope to also showcase some of the technological innovations that are currently happening around microbiome research. We also want to have specifically engagement of policymakers and have, as I've mentioned earlier, the public engagement. So we hope as well that there will be publications and other forms of data dissemination that come out after this meeting.
And just while I've got you, Prof, I wanted to ask this question to somebody who knows. There's a story I've heard that there are more microbes on the human body than there are human cells. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. So that story that you've heard is correct. That's because so it's not just a numbers game.
Yeah.
But, if you look at the microbes that are within your gut, they help your body digest metabolites that you cannot break down. Right? That's very important if you think about how we metabolize drugs, for instance, and just for overall human health. But we're not in a point, especially on the African continent, of understanding the full extent of diversity of these microbes.
Fascinating. Thank you very much. Professor Thulani Makalanyane is a full professor in the Department of Microbiology in the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking at Stellenbosch University.
The Science of Life on SAfm.
It's 8:30, time for news headlines.
Good morning. In the headlines, the DA Gauteng Shadow MEC for Education, Sergio Issa dos Santos, has raised concern that the Premier Panyaza Lesufi may have used the Nasi Spiny program to garner votes for the ANC in the May polls. The African Transformation Movement, ATM, says all those implicated in alleged fraud in the Home Affairs Department must be held accountable. This follows the department's preliminary findings after its investigation into the citizenship of Chidima Adicena. And President Cyril Ramaphosa will today be on a working visit to Angola, where he's expected to hold talks with his counterpart João Lourenço. The Angolan president is the outgoing SADC chairperson. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, it looks like the N12 West at Diepkloof has had that ramp onto the M1 North reopened just recently, probably in the last 15 or 20 minutes. There is a backlog to clear through from Xavier Street down through Uncle Charlie. So the N12 West heading towards Soweto remains heavy, but it looks like traffic is flowing through that interchange again, albeit slowly, with a backlog to clear. Crash on the R24 towards the airport, just past Edenvale, still there. Backlogs from the N12 split. And if you're leaving Pretoria, there's quite a big delay. You might want to avoid this. Crash between Garsfontein and Rigel, traffic parking all the way back to Linwood. You could join at Rigel, but if you join before that, you'll be in a bit of traffic pressure, a lot of pressure actually, big enough that the N1 North from the R21 up towards Garsfontein, slow with an impact on that side as well. Durban, a breakdown in the roadworks before Gateway, so heavy queues back beyond Kumashu Highway, getting back towards Queen Nandi. If you're on your way to King Shaka International, that's a problem. And a reminder, if you're driving Cape Town, stay off the M3 inbound from the southern suburbs. There's a burst water main with flooding at Paradise Road in the Bishop's Court area. The traffic remains solid, really solid from Constantia. And a crash between Icehaven and Swartklip Road junctions on Baden-Powell Drive, backlogging traffic both directions along that coastal route. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Very good morning. Let's start with Team South Africa in action today. An exciting day. Ashley Buhai continuing her strong performance in the women's golf tournament. She'll tee off for round 2 at 22 minutes past 10. Another golfer, Paul Loretto, also hits the course looking to improve from her first round. Athletics will see Ashley Erasmus and Minnie de Klerk aiming to qualify in the women's shot put at about 25 past 10. Marianne Fourie also will compete in the women's 100-meter hurdles. That's the repechage at 25 to 11. And she'll be looking for a spot in the final. Now, the men's 4x100-meter relay team will race in the heats, and that's at 25 to 12. Additionally, South African diver Julia Vincent will participate in the women's 3-meter springboard semi-finals from 10 a.m. Stay tuned for updates as Team South Africa strives for Olympic success on SABC Sport. Olympic news now, where the Australian hockey player Tom Craig has apologised after being released from custody in Paris following his arrest for allegedly buying cocaine. The Paris prosecutor's office said the individual was arrested, and that was on Tuesday night, for buying cocaine in the 9th arrondissement. Now, Craig was released with a warning and did not receive a fine. The 28-year-old Craig did win silver at the Tokyo 2020 Games and has made over 100 appearances for Australia. Closer to home, a tragic incident occurred in Cape Town where 17-year-old French under-18 rugby player Mehdi Najisi went missing after a team bonding session. The French Rugby Federation reported that Najisi was taken by a wave while swimming at the Cape of Good Hope around 4 p.m. yesterday. Emergency services are actively searching for him. Najisi is the son of the legendary top 14 Argent hooker Jalil Najisi. The French Rugby Federation has set up a psychological support unit for the team and is in contact with Najisi's family. The team is in South Africa for the Under-18 International Series, facing South Africa, England and Georgia. Further updates will follow as the search continues. And finally, EFC veteran Luke Michael will look to crown his 10 years in the MMA fraternity by claiming the vacant middleweight championship. Luke Michael is part of the popular team CIT, the same gym that boasts UFC world champion Dricus du Plessis. Michael says he's not fazed by the affiliation.
You know, to answer that question, like he says, he's trained with champions. I've been in the sport for a long time, and I've trained with different athletes, champions all around South Africa. I know what it takes. I know what it takes to compete this level. And I truly believe, you know, it's actually you in there. You can obviously it's good to have a strong team, but at the end of the day, you're in there alone. That's just the reality of the game. I actually remember my first coach, Rico Artin, he beat an active UFC fighter, and he told me he trained with two 12-year-olds. You know, it's your mindset, it's your skill set, and it's ultimately who you are. And like I said earlier, I just feel like this build-up has only been about CIT and Dricus, but for me, I'm here to cement myself as number one and take out anyone in front of me.
And that's how we wrap up sport. We'll bring you more around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAfm.
Taoleng Lachela is our business reporter. Good morning to you again, Taoleng. JSE is struggling. There's not much trading happening. What's happening?
That's right. Now, the first 6 months of the year was marked by a lot of uncertainty and volatility in markets, local markets in particular, and this saw itself play out in the JSE's earnings. Africa's largest stock exchange reported flat profit as its trading activity tumbled. This comes as investors, both local and foreign, took a wait-and-see approach when it came to South African assets in the lead-up to the national election. An important thing to note with this set of numbers is that they did not include the optimism, the equities rally that we experienced post-elections and the formation of the government of national unity. And so when looking ahead, company CEO Leila Fourie says trading activity will improve in the second half. Fourie already noted that inflows into the bond market are improving, with the exchange delivering its largest year-to-date foreign inflows since the start of 2020. Now, the company's equities trading unit still contributes the most to its top line and bottom line, but it has been making way with its diversification strategy as a way to protect its balance sheet amid market volatility. Its non-trading activity division now contributes about 38% to total revenue.
And tell us about Quilter. What's the finance company, right?
Yes, so it's a wealth management company. It's benefited from strong channel flows and cost-saving initiatives. This has resulted in double-digit earnings growth, with its interim profit coming in 28% higher. The group also reported a 7% rise in assets under management. This is a metric that measures the success of a wealth management company. Now, company CEO Stephen Levin noted that the period was characterized by tough macroeconomic conditions. The JSE-listed company that was unbundled by Old Mutual a few years ago mainly operates in the UK, and that economy also experienced difficulties, slipping into a technical recession late last year. There was also that national election that weighed on overall sentiment on that front. Now, despite this, it managed to deliver those record profits amid a slight recovery in global equities this year. Markets quite pleased with the numbers as the stock ended yesterday's trade almost 5% higher.
Taoleng Lachela, thank you. Oh, wait, we got to do the numbers. What are we looking forward to today? Sorry.
Kicking things off on the local front, the JSE in for a mixed start today. It is our last day of trade for the week as local markets will be closed as we celebrate National Women's Day tomorrow. Now, we have quite a lot of things to chew on today. Earnings out from SAPI, leadership changes at Naspers and Astral, as well as manufacturing output data being released today. Turning our focus to currencies now, the local unit pretty range bound this morning, trading between the 1830 to 1814 mark to the dollar. We are seeing investors dip their fingers back into riskier assets, but caution still remains. In Asia, those stocks on track to end the day on a mixed note, this after strong gains yesterday. And in the US, sentiment quite choppy, traders eyeing initial jobless claims for further insight on how the labor market is performing.
Have a lekker day off tomorrow. Enjoy your Women's Day.
Thanks, Don.
Taoleng Lachela, our business reporter. More from her again on Monday.
Witness the global battle of great athletes from South Africa and from all over the world in the Olympic Games Paris 2024. From the heart-pounding races on the track to the graceful routines on the gymnastics floor, each event promises to deliver moments of sheer brilliance and sporting excellence. Live the intense rivalries, inspiring comebacks and record-breaking performances right here across all SABC TV channels, SABC radio stations, on the move with SABC Plus or online on sabcsport.com. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. The Olympic Games Paris 2024. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Askis, my family, man.
This F-bomb brought to you by Sanlam.
A 13th chick is mos a 13th chick, né? But stop going boss with the spending like the 14th and 15th check is still coming in the mail. Is this a party, ne?
Finances is not a dirty word. Let's talk about it, Mzansi. Find out how at livewithconfidence.co.za. Sanlam. Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services and registered credit provider.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
Alan Hatherley of South Africa, as he steps up to receive the bronze medal at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. He is the first South African medal in cycling since 1912. Rudolph Lewis won the individual time trial. Congratulations, Alan Hatherley, your country is proud of you.
For the love of the game.
Keeping you informed and ready for the day ahead on hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
19 minutes to 9 with SAfm. We're going to talk tourism in a little bit and find out just how much that adds to the economy. Not just international tourism, but local tourism as well. But plenty of voice notes have come through on 0614 104 107.
Morning, John. It's Chris in Pietermaritzburg. Your interview with Somatata Figen, I get confused now. What is the mandate of the Public Service Commission? It is definitely not to build a particular public service. That is the mandate of the administration, the DGs. Theirs is to monitor, investigate, and evaluate the organization and administration of the public service, not to build one. I think there should be some mixed lines there. They cannot build in terms of the Constitution. Their mandate is definitely not to build a public service.
Morning, John. Agreed, security officers need to be at schools. My question is a bit of a controversial one, or maybe not, I'm not quite sure. What is a security officer entitled, empowered, allowed to do when facing people charging at him with a firearm and with a machete? Is he or she entitled to withdraw a firearm and shoot? That is a question which needs to be sorted out, John, because it's no good having security officers there and they actually cannot do what they're mandated to do. Thanks, John. Cheers.
Good morning to you, John. Good morning to your team. Great show always. It's Uncle JJ, the truck driver. I would like to say a big up to DA. DA is doing a good job for investigating where is the money. I think DA must investigate the previous Minister of Home Affairs, Motsoaledi, and the VFS. They must explain where are the permits for the Zimbabweans, which he was fighting with. Those people, they paid 1,250 for a waiver, 3,225 for the other permit, 1,000 plus for a doctor. Where is that money? What's going on with the VFS? Where did they invest that money?
Good morning, SAfm. It's Al calling from Cape Town. I would just like to inform you guys that there has been a major, serious flooding happening in the Swartland municipality. There's an area called Riverlands, also known as Dassenberg. It's completely flooded. Please, if you can maybe reach out or contact on behalf of that people, gift of the givers, or just someone to help them, please. Most of the people literally have nothing left. There's videos and stuff as proof that the whole place was flooded, and even the sports field is completely flooded out. So just bringing it under your guys' attention, please. Thank you.
Thanks for raising that attention. We'll get onto it. We'll see what we can do. At least the newsroom can get onto it and see and cover the story. Let's go to Ephraim in Johannesburg. Morning, Ephraim.
Morning, John. How are you?
Lekker, go ahead.
I'm not good. John,
Tell me why.
want to talk about, it's Ephraim in Alex. I want to talk about e-hailing.
Yes.
Specifically in Gauteng. The treatment we get from that office of MEC, Mama Kidiboni, is not good. Because now we're having the structure of e-hailing that was created in 2002 by the previous MEC, Mama Bolo. But the current MEC, when she comes in, she don't want to recognize that structure. Now she wants to parachute people into that structure, of which it will never happen. We better have the summit We are very disturbed about this thing, John, and she's doing it indirectly using the chief director to come and do that to us. Yesterday we were supposed to have a meeting. Apparently the meeting collapsed because of there was a lot of people there on the meeting. So this is not good that our leaders are doing. Yet in the morning people are complaining about all the other things, security, all of this stuff. Everywhere is a mess in this country. And Panyaza Lesufi, he's the one who's behind this thing that they are doing on this thing. We don't want to do things we push. We know what they are pushing us to. We don't gonna go there. He must know that they want to push us somewhere we know, and we're not gonna do it.
I don't know what they're pushing you to. What are they pushing you to, Ephraim?
They know.
Well, you tell me. What are they pushing you to?
They're pushing us to join something that we don't want to join.
Which is what?
That's why those people are beating us.
Which is what?
Thank you very much.
No,
Mr.
Ephraim, what are they wanting you to join?
I'll tell you one day after you meet the MEC, Don. I'll give you the full details after that.
Well, tell me now. I want to know. I don't know this full story. Give me the full story, Ephraim.
I'll tell you one day, Mr. John, after the meeting that we had next week or after next week. I'll let you know what's happening. Fully details. I'll call you and tell you, John, about what's happening with e-hailing in Gauteng. There's something they're pushing us forced to that one. And then I'm going to expose MEC and Panyaza what they are doing. It's not good and it's not healthy for people of Gauteng that we are doing to us. Thank you very much, sir.
Why is it a secret, Ephraim?
No, it's not a secret.
So
I need us to meet to have that meeting,
right.
And thereafter I'll come to SAfm and unleash everything from the start up to that meeting. We're waiting for that meeting to unleash so that we can express our feelings, how they do, and we tell them face to face what they are doing. Because that chief director of Gauteng Department of Transport, he's clueless and he don't know what he's doing. But I know who sent him. I know who was behind those things. We know everything, but we are ready for them. We'll bounce back when everything is said, and I'll come to SAfm and explain what's the problem with this Gauteng Department of Transport, together with Panyaza. They must leave the office.
Ephraim in Johannesburg. It's called a teaser. See what comes out of that.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, happy to report the N12 west onto the M1 north at Deepcliff all cleared now. It's a tanker crash and spillage from yesterday. The road had been closed probably until just around 8 a.m. this morning, but the big backlog has moved through once the road ramp had been reopened. The R24 towards the airport taking forever to clear. There's delays as you come off the N12 and pick up the R24 into that crash just past the Edenvale exit, and heavy backlogs coming through Pretoria with a crash on the M1 south between Garsfontein and Rigel. The traffic's really heavily backed all the way through to Linwood Road territory. Durban, if you're on your way towards the north, it's a bit sluggish up towards Umhlanga after an earlier breakdown in the roadworks. Traffic is moving again, but it will take just a little while to normalise. At Cape Town, a reminder to stay off the M3. Flooding at Paradise Road in the Bishop's Court area, still backlogging traffic heavily from as far back as Constantia. Get onto some of the alternative routes to avoid the worst of that. The N1 inbound from Monte Vista through to the city centre stays busy. Hout Bay Main Road, as we've seen this week, if you're going into Hout Bay from Constantia next side, that's a really big backlog into sort of central Hout Bay area. And a secondary crash on Baden-Powell Drive along the coast near Eisleben Road between Eisleben and Swartklip. Stop-go controls and a bit of waiting along that coastal route to get past that scene. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Everyone is just as important as you are. Stop gender-based violence. Treat others the way you want to be treated. No one deserves any form of violence. Report gender-based violence. Contact Lifeline South Africa toll-free number on your mobile phone. Call or WhatsApp 0800 150 150. That's 0800 150 150. Lifeline South Africa. Mental and emotional health for all. This is an SABC-supported initiative. Babina Noko returns to the battlefield with a great strategy to display a melody of victory. But the citizens are shaking their heads. Eric Tinkler's boys are confident that they will land successfully in the last four. This is the MTN 8 quarterfinal. Wafa Wafa. Catch Sikukune United FC and Cape Town City FC on Saturday, 10 August at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Miss South Africa 2024 finale will be live on Saturday, the 10th of August at 6 p.m. from the Sunbet Arena, Times Square, Menlyn, Maine. Good evening, Mzansi! Get your tickets for this crowning moment by going to missa.co.za, downloading the official Miss SA app, or purchasing your tickets on ticketpro.co.za. Come and witness it live.
You are listening to SAfm Breakfast.
We got 10 more minutes of the show. Let's talk tourism for a little while. Just how important is it, and have we recovered from COVID-19? Nombulelo Guliwe is the SA Tourism CEO. Good morning to you, Nombulelo. Have we recovered from post-COVID-19, and are we making money?
Good morning, John, and good morning to your SAfm listeners. Have we recovered? We've recovered from a spend perspective.
Yes.
We have recovered from a spend both domestic and international revenue has increased, and we are seeing pre-COVID numbers. We are lagging behind on arrivals, but domestic arrivals or trips have been the star of the show.
That's the important thing. Domestic tourism, people locally going on holiday in South Africa.
Yes, people locally going on holiday in South Africa. And as we tell the story of the economic impact of tourism before we even get to people that are traveling South Africa, within South Africa, it's also important because I love your first question around, are we recovering? Recovery is also linking to our contribution to GDP. So one of the untold stories of tourism, and that one that most people don't even know, is the fact that we contributed in Q1 of 2024 more than 8.8% to the GDP, contributing more than transport, mining, and agriculture. And that is attributable to the spend, like I said, in international arrivals of 95 billion rand, but also domestic trips of 121 billion.
Times are tough, and we've been talking about the economy crisis across the country and the cost of living. Is travel affordable, though?
And that's one of the things. So when we look at travel, we don't shy away from the from the economic state of South Africa. In fact, is into
we seem to have network issues with Nombulelo.
Sorry,
Nombulelo, you broke up. Let's ask the question again. Are accommodations and travel affordable for the average South African at the moment?
We have to work closely with our private sector on affordability. One of the key areas that we need to work on for domestic travel is affordability. In fact, the conversation around the economic impact for tourism is one that we don't have in a vacuum. We have it with the private sector that actually owns the accommodation. And one of the key initiatives that we have as South African tourism is what we call Travel Week in September, where we have packages that are suitable for the domestic market, because we are fully aware and fully present that we have to market South Africa in such a way that our own people can enjoy this country.
Yeah, you see, this is my issue. I follow travel places on my Instagram, and I thought, that looks fantastic, right? It's in one of my public parks that I pay taxes to, and I go there, and it's beyond me forever. What about South African prices and international prices?
Yes, dual pricing. Fully agree with you, John. Dual pricing for South Africans, it's something that is happening. Is it happening at the right scale? Definitely not. You've just mentioned you follow a certain establishment and it's not. But is it something that we're working on to ensure that this market and this travel segment is accessible to all South Africans? That's something that we're doing together with the private sector. And that's the reason I'm saying every year there is a platform that we run where we work together with the private sector and we say, what kind of deals can we do for South Africans so that at different segments we can deal with the issue of affordability.
Over the last couple of weeks, we've spoken about Airbnb's effect on rental prices in Cape Town in particular and across the country as well. But how is that short-term rental affecting hotels and for lack of a better word, legitimate guest houses in tourist spots?
So for us, we welcome the introduction and the increase in scope in terms of the different products that are available to travelers. But we also welcome the competition because competition is good for pricing. So it's something that we welcome, but we also are very, our position is that it has to be regulated. The sector that we're in must be regulated to ensure that there's fair competition, even in homestays.
Is it affecting hotels?
It is. I mean, it's in the same economy. If the supply increases in terms of different options of accommodation that is available, it will have an impact on the business of hotels.
Let's talk about the international arrivals. You gave this massive number, 121 billion rand for local tourists. In the first quarter of this year, internationals have brought in 25.7. Does that mean, if you times that by 4, local travel is bigger than international at the moment?
Local is, but the number that you are referencing, which is 25 billion, is for the quarter.
Yes.
The number I started with, which is 95 billion, is for the full financial year. Local is, we've seen what they call revenge travel in domestic. But again, we also know that we need to protect this market. And that's why I love having the conversation around how do we make tourism accessible for South Africans. But because if we don't do that, if we don't deal with affordability issues, we are going to lose this 121 billion that we've built over the segment.
What is local? Mdu's just made a good point. What is local? Is that just South Africans, or is that continental travel? Somebody from Zimbabwe coming on holiday?
Domestic travel is South African, so it's traveling our 9 provinces. Okay.
So somebody from Joburg going down to Cape Town for holiday, for example.
Perfect.
Okay. You mentioned revenge travel. What's revenge travel?
So post-COVID, we were all locked in, and the fact that there wasn't much tourism activity happening during that period. So we also had a phased approach to opening of tourism. You'll remember that we opened firstly for domestic travel, so travel within South Africa. We then opened our borders for regional travel, so within SADC and the continent, and then ultimately international. That then increased the activity within the domestic tourism market.
Okay, so people just going on holiday because they can.
Yes, because they can.
I want to talk about rating systems. When I look for a holiday, I go to the Googles and I see what the ratings are there. Do we have a legitimate rating system for accommodation and restaurants and other things that tourists might enjoy?
We do. Part of our job in marketing South Africa as a leisure and business tourism destination is also to ensure quality assurance. So we've got a business unit. It's the Grading Council of South Africa that works on quality assurance. We've got a grading criteria and from 1 to 5 star that then deals with quality assurance to ensure that anyone that we invite to this beautiful country of ours is able to have a good visitor experience. So we've got the Grading Council.
So we need to look for that when we're booking into accommodation.
You have to look at the Grading Council for star rating to ensure that the establishment is quality assured.
Okay, I want to come back to the pricing thing. Are you getting buy-in? You said slowly with 2-tier systems, but are you getting buy-in from places that are earning nice dollars and pounds that they will lower their prices for locals?
We are getting buy-in from those that we have approached, and it's non-negotiable. If we want the sector to work, if we want to drive inclusive growth, if we want to drive job creation, if we want to tap into the $1.5 trillion global economy of tourism, we have to make sure that we get the buy-in from everyone involved in the tourism value chain.
Our airports are doing well. We're winning awards. What are the airlines like? Are they managing, or do we need more planes?
We need more planes.
Right.
We need more airlift. We need more planes. Having more planes means even the issue of pricing getting to South Africa. The more supply means the prices will go down. So that's important for us in driving numbers to the country as well.
And where do you see our future markets?
Where do I see our future markets? Our growth markets, non-negotiable internationally. India and China, great growth potential. We know that we have to deal with our ease of access issues, and that's something that we are dealing with. But also in the continent, we must never discredit the continent. Out of the 8+ million arrivals that we have, more than 6 million come from the continent. And that's why it's important that even as Africa, who is a lead, for example, in the MICE sector, South Africa leads, it's the lead MICE destination in Africa. It's important that we share that knowledge and we grow the Africa tourism economy.
Nomulele Guliwe, thank you very much. SA Tourism CEO joining us here on SAfm Breakfast. That's the program. Thank you very much. We'll be back with a holiday edition tomorrow. Kathy's on the Wanderers golf course after the news at 9 o'clock. I'll see you soon.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, DA to refer Nasi Spani program to the Public Protector, and ATM welcomes preliminary findings into Miss SA finalist citizenship. Good morning. The DA Gauteng Shadow MEC for Education, Sergio Issa dos Santos, has raised concern that the Premier Panyazi Lesufi may have used the Nasi Spani program to garner votes for the ANC in the May polls. This follows the termination of the 32,000 teaching assistant contracts which were issued under the program. Lesufi had initially announced the contracts would run until 2025. The contracts were terminated at the end of last month due to budget constraints. Dos Santos says his party intends to refer the management of the program and Lesufi to the Office of the Public Protector for investigation.
The concern that we have is that for a very long time since the program had been announced, we have been stating that this program was not budgeted correctly. We raised concerns in terms of insufficient funding, and we had even said that Premier Lesufi doesn't have a plan after the elections, and it's come to reality that concerns have been proven correct.
The African Transformation Movement, the ATM, says all those implicated in alleged fraud in the Home Affairs Department must be held accountable. This follows the department's preliminary findings after its investigation into the citizenship of Chidima Adesina. The department's minister, Dr. Leon Schreiber, yesterday announced they had reasons to believe Adesina's mother may have committed fraud and identity theft. He says the Miss SA pageant finalist could not have participated in her mother's alleged unlawful actions as she was an infant when it happened in 2001. The ATM has welcomed the department's preliminary findings. The party spokesperson is Zaman Chona.
One of the questions we asked was the issue of how the parents, of the origins of the parents in terms of where they were born, how they entered the country, how they acquired their citizenship. And in this preliminary report, there seems to be an answer or maybe a preliminary finding that points to an answer. The only thing that we are asking for to the department is that the department must probe further and give us a fuller picture of what actually transpired.
Business and residents of the Eastern Cape have reacted positively to the multi-billion rand investment into the construction and improvement of the province road infrastructure. However, business says it's concerned about escalating crime in the construction industry. This includes the presence of the so-called construction mafia. During the opening of the provincial legislature last week, the Premier Oscar Mabuyane announced that 50 billion rand would be spent on